Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. Are you a fan of the Iron Sysadmin podcast? If you are, don't forget you can support the show via Patreon at patreon.com/IronSysadmin. Or you can buy merchandise at teespring.com/stores/IronSysadmin. And thank you. news, ops, and a little bit of paranoia. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to tonight's episode of the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. I'm your host, Nate, and I'm joined by two of our usual co-hosts. Welcome back, Jason. It seems like you haven't been on in a while. And, of course, Uncle Mark.
Yo. How does one podcast?
You forgot how? That's okay. We practically forgot how, too, because it's been a month.
All the wrist.
On the wrist?
All
on the wrist. You just like fly fishing? Is that it?
Similar. Got to make sure you let go of the line at the right time or it'll tangle.
Casting of the pods. Where was it? Somewhere we were joking that podcasting should be fishing with an Apple iPod on the end of the line to catch viewers. I don't know. It was funny at the time.
Cricket.
It's not as funny when I repeat it.
Kind of fell flat there.
Kind of fell flat.
I'm not sure if that was ever funny, dude. No offense. But, we'll let you have it.
Hey, whatever. So, it's been quite a month since we recorded last.
For the first time in forever. I had to do it.
Yep,
and I'm wearing the Disney sweatshirt, too.
Oh, good.
That I picked it up in Epcot last year, right before the plague hit.
Right before the plague hit. That's right.
Yeah, no, my wife and I were in Disney for a second honeymoon right before the plague hit.
Yeah, we've talked about that on the show.
Yeah.
Good
I
stuff.
mean, it was a good trip. We had fun.
Even though you got the plague from it.
I think I think we either caught the plague in Newark Airport, which, by the way, can happen when we're not in the middle of a global pandemic.
No.
Possibly at Giant when I took the kids there the day after we got home.
Airports are clean. What are you talking about?
Newark has hookers and pigeons in the airport.
Hookers and pigeons in the airport.
Hookers and pigeons flying around in the airport.
I can kind of understand how the pigeons get away with it, but how do the hookers get away with it?
Well, I get the hookers not so much nowadays, but
okay.
Man, come on, you got to get. Look, I gave you the podcasting joke.
I wanted to know how the hookers were flying.
Flying hookers.
Lots of heroin.
That'll do it. All right, we're off the rails already, folks. Welcome to the Iron Sysadmin Podcast. All right, so full disclosure, we were going to have, you may remember, Dementor, otherwise known as Avery. He's, or I think I'm pronouncing that right. There's only 4 letters in the name. You think I could get it right? We had him on the show quite a while ago, and he was talking about PowerShell running on Linux, which was kind of a cool topic. What are you counting?
The number of letters in the name?
Yeah. What?
Pretty sure it's not 4.
I think it's 4.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
Whatever. Okay. Look. Maybe I got the number of letters as well wrong. Whatever. I'm not going to look it up right now because that's just another sidetrack. What the hell was I saying? He was going to be on the show tonight.
No, Patrick.
To talk about home automation with Home Assistant. We've had to bump that back to next show. So hopefully on the 28th he'll be on. If you guys want to just wish him and his family well, they had a family emergency and he can't be on tonight. So we're all hoping that things work out just fine. There's no reason to think that they won't, but we hope everything is well there. So instead, I came up with a backup topic, which luckily I just happened to be rolling around in my head when he told me this afternoon that he couldn't make it. As listeners of the show are aware, Jason and I don't know, maybe Mark, we have a history of self-hosting things. Like for a long time, I ran my own website out of my basement, along with my mail and my DNS and like every piece of infrastructure that, you would need to run a website and mail. We're all running right here in my basement. And I kind of got away from that a while ago because I was feeling a little burned out. Some of it I've brought back in, but not all of it. I don't intend to bring it all back, but it really made me start thinking, because Mark, we have some coworkers who do the self-hosting thing. Is self-hosting still relevant in today's age? And I just thought we'd have a conversation, go around, talk about why you might want to self-host things, if it makes no sense at all to do things from home anymore. For a little background, the reason I started doing it was mainly because initially I wanted to learn how this stuff worked. We're talking like the late 90s. I wanted to know how to run a server. I wanted to know how to run a website. I wanted to know how to like make a website. And really, there were only a couple ways to do that at the time. You couldn't just plug your credit card and put it into AWS and spin up a server instance and start tinkering. You needed a place to run the thing or host your code. There were options like AngelFire and GeoCities for those of you that remember those things from back in the 90s, where you could just sort of upload your HTML, or you had like a WYSIWYG editor where you could make pages. And those weren't really my style. And really, the only other options were, some ISPs would give you space to put HTML, right? But you couldn't do anything complicated there because they had their own server security to deal with. There were no database backends or whatever. The only real other option, unless you had a big budget, was to run stuff under your desk, in your basement or whatever. So that's what I did. For like ever, my website ran of. I mean, it was on a 486 at one point in my parents' basement when I still lived there. It moved over the years as I moved. It expanded to mail hosting and expanded to, I ran a BBS for a while, like all this stuff, and it was always either in my basement, or there was a short time where I worked at an employer was kind enough to let me co-locate my server with him. And then, of course, Jason, you hosted my server for a while. But, again, this was all done by me. There was no other provider behind it except maybe someone giving me network and power and bandwidth. So today, all my stuff runs on DigitalOcean because I kind of got sick of having it in my basement. I'm not saying that people shouldn't run them in their basement, but I guess that's kind of the conversation today. Does it make sense? Does it make sense today? Like if I were doing it all over again, would it make any sense at all to spin up an old desktop in my basement to run my stuff on? So Jason, I think you still self-host at home, don't you?
Yeah, I have a box that sits here. I do other stuff that's not at home as well, but I have my own server here that runs the majority of everything.
Like your website, your mail, your DNS, the same as it always was?
Yep. DNS is handled by Amazon now, because for $2 a month, getting that much redundancy in DNS is kind of worth it.
Yeah, it could be. But I mean, I guess that's kind of my point, right? So if you're hosting at home, you don't get redundant power unless you invest money in that. You don't get backup generators unless you invest money in that. You don't get good cooling unless you invest money in that, right? At what point does it make sense to just, like I'm doing, I spend 30 or 40 bucks a month on DigitalOcean for a couple, for some file storage and a droplet.
Yeah, well, I work from home, so my server is a small little box that I have in the corner that sits and runs 24/7. It's on a UPS. I have a backup generator in the garage for the once a year maybe that the power goes out for more than a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got air conditioning in here because I like not cooking during the summer, and I'm in here 8 hours a day plus.
So you don't like roasting in an underground oven like you're in?
No,
Not a good
no,
thing?
I prefer not roasting.
Jason roasting on an open
It's
fire.
it works for me. The
For the
hosting
holiday
works for me. I
special.
don't need anything high speed. The mail that I'm running is for both for myself and for some old customers that of an ISP I was with. But it's relatively low amount of mail. I've got a bunch of websites, but it's right here, so I can just screw around with it whenever I want, and I'm always tinkering with something. So
Yeah, there's a certain amount of freedom to having it right there that you can like physically walk to it and do something to it. Although
yeah,
that's getting like, I don't know, it's getting to be where I don't know if I care so much about that.
yeah. I don't know. I keep looking at it from the perspective of like if I go to Amazon or I go to DigitalOcean or wherever and host this stuff, that's money out of my pocket that I got to deal with directly. Whereas, the stuff that I have in place here is for more than just that one box that's sitting in the corner. It's for my office and everything that I run in my office. Stuff that would stay here regardless of whether or not that one box is missing. So for me, it works out. It's fine.
So Josh is asking in the chat on Twitch. He said, "I'm curious. Do you use pizza boxes or new machines with better slash less power consumption?" So you want to say what you're running your stuff on there, Jason?
Yeah. So back in the day, it was pizza boxes.
Yep, that's where I was.
Uh,
Actually, I had old towers. I have one
yeah.
sitting here still.
So when I moved here, I decided that having a pizza box that sounded like a
Like a
jet
vacuum
coming in for a
cleaner?
landing was probably a little loud to be sitting in the room all day long. So I moved to um, a different. It's an Intel. It's still an Intel platform, but it's like a
Is it a
little
NUC?
mini ITX board. What's that?
Is it a NUC?
No, no.
Did I say that right? Because
Nook.
I feel like Tom Nook is the raccoon from Animal Crossing.
Yeah, Nook
Is it an Intel NUC or an Intel Nuke?
it's
No.
it's a Nook from what I've been told.
You're talking about
okay.
the the Intel NUC, right? It's a. I always
Yeah.
called it a NUC.
So it rhymes with Tom Nook. I mean, I don't care. I just
Yeah.
want to use the right term because you
So-
looked at me like I was barking like a dog.
So
Why is Mark barking?
so I looked I looked at the Intel Nooks at the time, and what I built was roughly the same cost, but I could put hard drives in mine, like a lot of them.
That's valid.
Whereas a Nook, I really couldn't do that with, and space was sort of the thing that I was looking for. So it's not a Xeon, nor is it an i5 or an i7. It's I'd have to log into it. I don't remember. It's
Why don't we
not the
just
most
gonna make
powerful thing
Josh
in
a
the world.
co-host?
Yeah, right. Well, probably when he goes to a time zone where the show doesn't interfere with the last hour of his day job.
Oh, well, that's valid. Stupid day jobs. I bet he works for a really mean company.
I bet he does. It's totally inflexible and wouldn't let him do something like host a podcast.
So this thing is an octal core Intel Atom
Mm,
E2750.
that's cool. I have always tinkered with the idea of hosting on an Atom system. Back when I was doing, I used to have any piece of network service or gear that my house depended on was a Linux box. I had a Linux-based firewall / router. I had, Wi-Fi, like dumb Wi-Fi access points that just connected to that Linux machine instead of, smarter devices like I have now. But when I was doing all that, my power bill was like way up there. I also had servers running in my basement at the time. But, I was paying like $300-400 a month for power, just for power. And I always thought, what if I replace everything I can with Intel Atom processors? And it sounds like you've done that, so that's cool. So 8 cores of Intel Atom. Did you have to run that's not x86 then, right? So did you have to run a special spin of...
No, it's x86.
Oh, I thought Atoms weren't x86.
No,
What's
it's actually I got it because it was x86.
Okay.
Or at least was
How old is
able
it,
to-
Jason?
Huh?
How old is it?
The 27. So this server is about 3 years old now. About 3 years old.
I remember when you were sourcing parts to build it.
Yeah.
So I have the worst home servers right now, and I say that if you remember Greg Scott, Clayton Oosterhouse.
Yeah.
Greg Scott had a bunch of DL580s. They're towers, but they're not desktop towers, like server towers that his wife demanded he get out of their house. So he sent them to me for the cost of shipping. Now the cost of shipping these suckers was a couple of $100, but they were free. They were free with the cost of shipping.
This.
Yeah, these are bigger. These things will actually kill you if they fall on you.
This one
They're tremendously heavy, and they're loud, and they heat my office up, and I'm sure they suck power. They're not actually even on right now.
Because we'd hear them, right?
Well, right. And when I got them, I installed Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization on them to install OpenShift to try and learn OpenShift. And now they're my lab, which has satellite and a couple of other VMs and stuff. But I don't actually use them. At times, I was using the Red Hat IPA server or our IDM server, basically the RHEL 7 one,
Hmm.
for DNS in my house.
Okay.
But I just pivoted back to my router. I So for me, I have a hard time justifying self-hosting at this point just because of the noise, the heat, and the expense. But I also, I'm not voting with my wallet to buy something smaller, quieter, and cheaper to run. Instead, I'm doing things like upgrading my VR headset and things like that because, flight simulators.
So
But
I think right there you hit a good point right on the head though. Um, it all comes down to what do you really want in your house. You don't want
so
servers in your house. It sounds you want a VR in your house, which is completely
so
valid.
yeah, and I built the home lab because I couldn't learn the stuff I wanted to learn with tiny VMs on my work laptop,
Hmm.
and I needed the ability to basically stand up a real virtualized infrastructure so I could learn what my customers are going through. And now it's like I bring it up when I need to, but it's at the point where if I want to have a serious home lab, I probably need to get newer hardware. And it would probably be a much smaller physical footprint for less power and still have the oomph I would need. But it's not a high priority to me.
I've been toying with the idea of getting a number of small systems, maybe Intel NUCs, maybe something else, NUCs,
Deep
NUCs, whatever.
DP nails it. I've seriously thought about this, setting up a rack of Raspberry
Yeah,
Pis and running Linux on them to do stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Because to
So,
me the perfect use case for home, because I don't do side work anymore. Screw
mhm.
that. My free time is to watch TV or play games or whatever. I don't need to like be charged. I don't need to be your computer guy moonlighting away from my day job. Um, but so for me, the use case for self-hosting is it has 99% of the time been either because it's cool, like when I ran an MP3 jukebox on an old Macintosh that was running Yellow Dog Linux. That was a while ago. That was
Is
back in
Yellow
Tom's
Dog
River,
even
actually.
around anymore? I don't think it is.
Well, let me throw a few words at you to give you the era we were in. DSL, LimeWire, Winamp,
Hmm.
all these
It
making
whips
all
the
these.
llama's ass.
Whips the llama's ass.
Yeah.
So
So
the server that I have here is based so a couple of years ago when I started looking into this, there was a new company that came out called Ansley. And they had these small boxes that were like, exactly what I wanted. It was low power, basically didn't have fans in it. It had tons of storage, was great, exactly what I wanted. So I reached out to them and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. Like, what do these things cost?" Um,
$6,000.
um, and
1
pardon my
million
French, but
dollars.
fuck all expensive is what they cost.
If you
Um,
have to ask, you can't buy them. Is that
Okay. This episode
un
of the Iron Sysadmin podcast officially gets the explicit tag on
Yep,
iTunes.
I could not believe how much money these things were. Like well over $1,000 for this box.
yikes?
It is that box that I have sitting in the corner, minus the fancy metal container that the Ansley has that allows it to not have fans.
Mm,
That box in the corner is more powerful and cost me less than half of what way less than half of what the Ansley cost.
that's cool.
Just as an example, I'm looking at their website now. They have this new thing called the Ansley Nano.
How big is it? Is it nano? Do you
It's a
need?
Raspberry Pi 4 for $159,
Nice.
Hmm.
Very nice.
but it's got a nice metal sheath around it
The metal sheath is what's important.
and a 128 gig SD card. How I don't understand. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know, bud.
I
It's
emailed the guy and like I ended up talking to the CEO and I was like, I would buy
Are
this,
you
but what
high?
the hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Yes,
valid
they are. Are you
valid
high?
question. Are you high? Yeah. So I guess so the idea of a Raspberry Pi based lab is not completely without merit, but I feel like there's limitations there because of the architecture, right?
There
So
there
but
are, but the Raspberry Pi 4s, it's still ARM, but the Raspberry Pi 4 is like super powerful.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I actually just bought one, and we can talk about that later in the chat because it's not quite related to self-hosting. but they are. I went on the thing that I bought the Raspberry Pi 4 for, like to do with, because that came out weird. I said 4 4.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm still not sure what the hell you're saying. By the way.
the Pi, I had a Pi 2.
My parser is crashing.
Your parser
thanks
is
to you.
crashing. I had a Pi 2 that I just had in stock, like laying around, that I did a thing on, and then I needed to. It was just too slow, so I said, whatever, I'll just go buy a Pi 4. I bought a Pi 4, rebuilt the thing, and it is like not just twice as fast. It is ridiculously fast compared to what it was on a Pi 2. And this wasn't like a crazy complicated application.
$35? Good lord!
Oh yeah, they're dirt cheap.
Why don't I just buy one now?
Now keep in mind it's $35, and then you need a little bit of quote unquote infrastructure, right? You need a thing to power it. You need an SD card. You might want a case for it. You know, by the time you're done, you could probably invest $100, you know, to get everything nice.
Well, there's the kit. Let's see what the hell that is.
I
Oh,
had
that's
a-
the one that's built into a keyboard.
I had to buy special HDMI cables because they changed those on the Pi 4 so they could have dual displays. Get that! The Pi 4 has dual displays! You can plug 2 monitors into the damn thing.
What? There are no resellers that match that? What?
They ain't none. He's going to buy a Pi 4 before the end of the show. But anyway, yeah.
Well, I'm drinking bourbon, so there's
Yeah.
a really good chance.
Okay, so Josh has put a link to where you can buy a Raspberry Pi 4 in the Twitch chat. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm trying to find. I have the link somewhere, but there is a board you can get. It's a little bit bigger than the Raspberry Pi board, and it has slots that look like memory slots.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get I don't know if the Pi 4 versions are out, but you can get Pi 3
Yes.
little memory card slot Pi.
There
3s
are
that you just
there are
plug in.
Pi. They call them like compute cards or something. They're Raspberry Pi 3s. Maybe there's 4s now that you literally plug into basically like it looks like a little motherboard, just like you were saying.
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah,
have
I
a
don't-
cluster of Pis.
I used to love
Yeah, apparently
her,
the compute 4s are out.
Cool.
but I had to kill her. Let's see.
But there was this really cool board that you could get. You could put like 8 or 12 or something of them in there.
I just realized that
and
Mark
you
was
can
singing
either
Guns N'
cluster
Roses.
them together, or you can use them individually. But it all ran off of a single board, off of a single power supply, and then it can share storage and do all sorts of neat stuff.
That's cool, but it's
You
still
can
ARM.
Yes, it's ARM, but you can do an entire lab with that easily.
Well, depends on what you're trying to do in your lab, right? Whatever you're trying to do has to build on ARM.
I can still hear her complain. So
He
the
is
thing
singing
is,
Guns N' Roses.
I am. I am absolutely. I love Guns N' Roses.
Uh,
Yeah. So
You guys drinking before we started, or what?
Anyway.
to me, self-hosting.
Yeah, that's what we were
Self-hosting.
talking about, right?
Self-hosting is all about scratching that guy's itch, the Apple II.
Yeah.
Back when you had to do a damn thing with a computer, you had to learn the fundamentals, and you had to hack, and you had to do all sorts of cool stuff. So the fact that the Raspberry Pi is ARM means that you actually have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you'll have to compile things from source.
Well,
and you'll have
so it depends on the reason for your home lab or your self-hosting, right? So if you're self-hosting for a home
Truth.
lab and you're doing that because you have a day job that doesn't require it necessarily, but will benefit from it, it has to work. You have to be able to just like sit down and do stuff on it. Otherwise, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Customer, I'm trying to reproduce your problem, but it won't compile on ARM, and they'll be like, what? You know what I mean?
well, yeah. No, I hear you.
So,
But but here's the thing. My wife used to make fun of Linux. Like, and there were a few times when I tried like fool her into using Linux. But then so we've got this crappy Dell all-in-one computer we bought. Oh God, the thing, I'm not even sure how old it is even anymore.
well,
And
nobody
the hard
really
drive
makes
threw
those anymore.
the
so-
hard drive threw a rod, right? And it was Windows 8. And the recovery image for Windows 8 was on the dead hard drive.
Yeah, I hate that.
And since we're explicit already, there was no fucking way I was buying a new Windows 8 license from Microsoft to put on a brand new hard drive.
Yeah.
So I bought a $25 hard drive from Amazon. The thing now could be in kindergarten or maybe even first or second grade. And it's running Fedora. And it's running Fedora 33. It's upgraded in place all the way from, let's call it Fedora 18 or 20 to Fedora 33. Maybe not 18, but it's been on there for a few years now. It was in
Yeah.
the 20s.
Sure.
And she uses Linux every day because she, like most of the rest of the planet, what they use computers for
Oh, yeah.
is a web browser.
They need a web browser. You could replace it with a Chromebook and she'd never notice. You could replace it with an Android tablet, she'd never notice. Maybe she would,
Yeah.
because she wants a keyboard,
Most-
I'm assuming.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of her Christmas presents, she didn't like the keyboard anymore. She wanted a glowing red mechanical keyboard, so she didn't have to turn the lights on. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Clackety, clackety, clackety. Oh yeah.
We can talk about that later too. The clackety clackety.
Yes, my wife likes mechanical keyboard. She's a keeper.
Good. There you go. So, I had a thought that I was about to form into a sentence, and then we went off about your Dell all-in-one computer.
Yeah, but so the point is, so use cases, right? So even though it's ARM, that's like her being scared that she's using Linux, because what she's really using is Firefox or Brave.
Okay, right.
And so you can probably get, for self-hosting, if you're running a web business or you're doing something else like that, the fact that it's running on ARM, who cares? The customer's not paying for Intel. The customer's paying, they're not even paying for Apache. They're paying for stuff to show up on the screen when somebody clicks the link.
Yeah, right.
For stupid basic websites, I'd agree. But you know,
Like,
even when you get to something
so-
like WordPress, now you're not dealing with just throwing words up on a screen. You've got databases and processes.
So
and
here's an example.
How
Right?
bound to architectures are you with that? And I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass. Are you actually stuck on certain architectures for that? And I'm sorry, Nate. I mean, could you recompile?
Oh yeah, you can absolutely.
Yeah, but
I
the
mean,
question then becomes like performance in some cases too. If you're hosting a real website and not just a tinkery thing, right? You got to worry about performance. And is a Raspberry Pi running MySQL or MariaDB or Postgres or whatever going to perform as well as an x86 box? Maybe. I don't know.
That's why
Well-
you shard your database and you run multiple pies in parallel and you put a load balancer in front of it.
Before
I
you
don't
know
see
it-
the problem.
Before you know it, you have 24 pies running, and they cost
Right.
more per month than a single x86 machine would have.
Or
Well,
I mean,
don't
if
know if
you've
you're
got
ever going to get there, but
and they catch fire every so often because they're
mean,
not
remember-
designed for that.
remember the ARM the 64-bit ARM systems that the college was looking at.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
I mean, I was kind of excited to get my hands on that.
Yeah,
It never
Too bad they
happened,
were
but-
ridiculously expensive.
Yes, they were.
I mean,
That
this
was-
is
that
like
was-
what 7-8 years ago at this point, but
Right.
yeah. So there was a thing I was going to say. Oh, right. So my use case for a home lab that I'm thinking of building, I have not committed to building, is to do things like I'm currently trying to learn OpenStack, right? It's kind of hard to practice deployment and building of OpenStack on a cloud provider because,
oh god, yeah.
well, you just
need-
can't.
the whole point of OpenStack was
Is
let's
to run a
build
cloud.
Amazon in our
Yeah,
basement.
yeah.
Yeah. So you need
So-
bare metalage.
So I need
Yeah.
machines to do it on. Now, this isn't quite self-hosting. We've transitioned into the world of home labs, but it's kind of related, I guess.
Right. We're
if
mixing
you're-
topics.
If you're just trying to run a website from your house, you could absolutely do that on a Pi. Like, that's dirt simple. That's almost identical to running it on x86 because you install the OS, you install Apache, boom, you've got a web server, right?
There's Emerald again.
There's Emerald again. We had a little bit of Emerald before the show today. Boom.
Boom.
Boom. Anyway,
I think it.
deploy
think what I'm
Ceph
hearing
in a
is
Raspberry
it-
Pi cluster. Oh my God, he's actually giving me ideas on how to get this done.
And I got to learn Ceph because I had a customer that I probably got to start supporting Ceph on in March. We've got a TAM opportunity, and it looks like it's going to be me, and it might make me very cranky.
to have to learn Ceph.
Yeah.
I hear it's not easy. I haven't gotten that
Oh.
far in my own journey for OpenStack, but it's gonna be there. It's gonna have to be.
Cisco Express forwarding, right? I mean, it's just a compiled.
Yeah, that's exactly what
forwarding.
we're talking about.
Yeah, you just got to watch because every once in a while the cache builds up, and then you have to clear it or the routes get all screwed up. It's really kind of a problem.
Nice. So, I don't know if we've really answered any of the question here. Does it? I don't know. Do you? And this is
I
for
think
you,
we've
Jason,
I think we've
since you're
got three.
self-hosting.
I think we've got three people with unique perspectives on it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So my perspective is this: I don't self-host anything important because I have enough money that I don't have to. Like it,
So
or I don't feel like dealing with the headaches. Like I
that
used
in
to self.
itself is a valid point to talk about. Does it actually save money to self-host?
If your time is of no value,
That's the thing, right?
it can.
So
But like
I've always held the opinion that that's always the argument, right? Oh, but you're spending all your time doing it. Okay. If I enjoy it, then it doesn't matter that I'm spending my time doing it. It's also a hobby. It's fun, right? So what I spend in time, I get back in enjoyment. If I hate doing it, which is almost the state I was in a couple years ago when I took all my stuff and put it in DigitalOcean, I was getting sick of hosting it at home. Then, it makes a little more sense to get it out of my time and into my wallet, right? I didn't really do a close examination as to if it's really cheaper to have it in the cloud at this point. And I don't know that I could have, to be honest, because it's really hard to get like what fraction of my power is being spent on these servers that are running in my basement. At least it was hard
Right.
for me at home because I didn't have any sophisticated equipment that could measure that kind of stuff.
And as your daughters get older and burn more power, your server bill will become a tiny part of your electric bill.
Yeah, right. So, I don't know. I guess so. Jason, do you ever? You've got your machine at home to tinker with. That's where you essentially run everything you run, I assume, right? Or you said you run DNS in the cloud because you wanted the redundancy.
And everything is containers now, so moving it somewhere else would be
Right.
relatively trivial.
Well, I guess where I was going was, do you ever, like, if I want to tinker with something new, or if I want to try to re-architect something that I'm already hosting, or I want to try deploying it in a different way on DigitalOcean or on Amazon or wherever you're doing it, you can like spin that stuff up and tinker with it, and if you don't like it, you just blow it away, right? Do you ever feel like you want to do something like that, but then you think about how you have it hosted, you're like, I can't do that because my platform's not right, or I don't have that tool, or I don't have that capability?
I think the closest that I've come to is I made a bet on Atomic OS, Atomic Linux, because
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of awesome.
And it seemed like that's where everybody's going. Yeah.
And then Red Hat fucked me. So
Well, that's okay. At least you're not running CentOS.
Bastards.
yeah. Well, there's that one too.
Just to cut that wound again.
So now my choice is to go like
Get over it.
Well, so I was gonna go to CentOS. But,
You can still go to CentOS
Yeah,
7
you can-
until 2024.
Totally
boned
still
on
do
that
And
one
you can
too.
use CentOS Stream. Use CentOS Stream.
Yeah.
You get your
Yep.
bugs fixed first.
Yep. Somebody mute him.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to go Core OS, but I just have to find the time to learn it. The learning curve on Core OS is a tad higher than other things.
Josh says you can go to Oracle
And
Linux.
just as you learn Core OS, Red Hat will fuck you again.
I can go to Oracle Linux. Okay,
Yeah.
so how does one boot somebody out of Twitch? There's a button for that, isn't there?
maybe
think you
maybe I
need
can mute him for a few minutes. He deserves it after that. You're in a timeout, Josh.
But
Pretty sure
so
Oracle Linux is just Red Hat anyway, isn't it?
it's basically
It is, but it's unbreakable.
Uh-huh.
It's a downstream rebuild. I'm going to answer the question seriously. It's a downstream rebuild, and Oracle does their own spin on the kernel.
Right.
It's legitimately free, but you have the option of paying them for support. And if I were forced to run Oracle as a database, I might consider using Oracle Linux as the hosted operating system, just because Oracle probably has done some optimizations there.
Yeah.
They absolutely have, and they will try to sell you on it every time they talk to your DBA. If you were on
That-
Unbreakable Linux,
That being
Yeah.
said, I personally don't care for the company Oracle. I'm sure there's I have some, I know lovely people who used to be there. Larry Ellison is crazy. I think he's always been mad jealous that he's not the richest nerd. So he, so
Pure
he
evil.
bought a MiG to try and make up for that. But yeah, Oracle just does not have a good rep in the industry, and it's well
Nope.
deserved.
no, they don't. Unfortunately, they have a terrible rep, and I don't know if I want to call it a good database platform, but a widely used database platform. How's that?
It's like SAP.
Yes, exactly.
It's
Oh, God.
garbage, but so many people use it that you just gotta
That you
deal
have
with
to support it. Yeah.
Please kill me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so tired of SAP.
Have we used too many things that trigger you
No,
in the same sentence, Jason?
Well, SAP runs on
Triggered!
Oracle, so I get the best of both worlds.
Or Jira?
I will not,
Jason.
but yeah, I don't self-host Oracle or SAP myself.
Yeah, I wouldn't self-host any of those things. So anyway, this has been kind of a rambly back and forth, as you would expect from the Iron Sysadmin podcast. I don't know that we answered
They'd be
anything, but
disappointed if we were
hopefully,
straightforward.
hopefully
You
people
could-
get some takeaways from this.
You couldn't self-host Oracle. The power requirements of the servers needed to run it are so
Yeah,
enormous.
you need 64
And
gig of
Larry
memory
Ellison-
and then another 128 gig of swap on top of it.
And Larry Ellison will personally come to your house to audit you every day.
Oh yeah,
Right.
right.
You'll have a couple of lawyers join you for lunch just
Yes.
to count your
That you're paying
CPUs.
for.
Right.
Yeah. Freaking Oracle.
Oh man.
We
All
met-
right.
oh, you were there for this, Nate. I think the Oracle guy, the Oracle sales guy, was. I have never. I've bought a lot of cars. I've bought a lot of used cars.
Oh
and
man.
I've met a bunch of car salesmen, and they're always there's kind
they
of a
got their
type.
shtick.
I have never met anyone in my life that just emit used, greasy, nasty, used car salesman asshole ever that much in my entire life.
Yep.
Like I walked into the room and everybody in the room was like, ugh.
Look
And
at
then he
his
opened his
hair.
mouth and it just got
Right.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah. I would argue that used car salesmen are more approachable and friendly.
Yes.
When they
And,
kick
likable.
when they kick you off a Billy Bob's dealer lot, then that's when you go to Oracle.
Yeah, right.
Because you're
Because
too
you're just
slimy
not likable
you're too
enough to be in
slimy
sales.
to sell used cars to people with terrible credit. Oh,
So anyway,
Uh,
all right.
sorry,
So
Hope.
so anybody have a final thought on self-hosting and whether it's worth it? I hope we covered enough of this to be useful for
It
anybody.
depends.
It's fun.
It depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing.
Oh, that's what I was
For
trying to
me-
say before. I do
yeah.
still self-host a handful of things. One of them is a Plex server that I run in my basement, so I can put all my movies in one place. There's a lot of people that do that on cloud providers too. There's people who figured out dirt cheap ways to do it on cloud providers too. You just like throw all your movies in a Google Drive, which sounds like you're breaking some terms of service, if you ask me. And then you can like point a Plex server at a Google Drive. I've never tried this, but apparently it's a thing you can do.
So a Plex server, that's exactly the use case where I'd be loath to not self-host it
Right.
because you might accidentally have copyrighted material on a Plex server.
Accidentally, quote unquote.
So I am very grateful for friends who have self-hosted Plex servers.
Yeah.
Of course,
Because
you
I
would.
enjoy watching. Some of my friends have ridiculously nice reenactments of popular movies. They look almost like the actors who play.
Oh
the
yeah.
movie.
There's some people that they're really good at that. Really good
It
at
is
that.
perfectly legal to rip movies when you own the DVD. Thank you. Thank
So
you
I
for
can
taking
only
my
I
TED
can
Talk.
watch. I
Is
can
it
watch
is it
things that I own the
actually?
DVD.
Because there was a while they were trying to tell us it wasn't.
No, it's as far as I can tell, it's legal. So
Oops.
whatever.
Yeah, backup copies.
Yeah,
it's
they're
not.
backup
That's not even.
copies.
That's not even a
The-
fake
The
excuse.
problem is that if you then take your backup copies and put them on Google, that might be illegal.
Right.
Well,
or a cloud
not if-
provider, or
only
anything
if
where you can
somebody
share
else-
them with other people.
Yeah, just don't put them up on Parler. Oh, I went there.
You can't. You can't put them up on Parlor.
If you'd put them up on Parler 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Anyway.
Right, mute button.
Here we go. All right, so I hope we've covered the topic well enough for folks that you've got something useful out of here. Do you self-host at home? I mean, let us know if you do. If you love your self-hosting, or you found that it is more cost-effective, or for some reason better than hosting with some other provider. And we didn't even touch on the possibility of privacy concerns in all of this conversation, which we probably could have dove
I
into.
just did. I just totally did.
You only kind of did with the movies thing. That we
Yeah,
didn't dive
That's a
into
privacy concern.
Okay,
Oh,
we barely touched on it on the privacy.
Okay.
How's that?
There was
Barely
touching.
touched on the
There
privacy.
was touching.
Look at it this way: if you are self-hosting a server for the purpose of serving websites or some sort of content to the internet, you have increased your attack surface significantly because now people are looking to attack you.
Yeah, whether they know you're at home or not.
Right,
Yeah.
script kiddie or not, and now you're you are inviting them to attack your home network. Now there are million ways to mitigate this, of course, but
It's good practice for security.
yeah, it is.
Sure. If you can
I
defend
remember the first.
you can
I
defend your
opened up-
home from the hackers, you can defend an enterprise from the hackers.
I stood up a server. I stood up an Ubuntu VM on my lab a couple of years ago to try and host a game server, and within moments of it, and I was using Ubuntu because that's what a lot of the instructions were for. So I said to heck with it.
Yep.
It was amazing how quick China tried to attack the damn thing.
Oh yeah, I did an
I,
article
I was
for
I was banning whole blocks of IP ranges.
I did an article for Enable Sysadmin. I forget what the article was now at this point, but I was talking about security and defense in depth and all that stuff. And just as a test, I stood up a machine on AWS with no firewall, and I just watched my
Within moments.
the secure log, right? And it took 10 minutes. And I was surprised it took that long. 10 minutes before people started trying to attack root.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Now,
It's
obviously,
crazy.
that's a cloud provider's IP space. It's probably getting scanned 6 ways to Sunday,
was-
24/7, right? But
This was RCN space,
Yeah.
my cable modem provider space with the and I exposed a single IP using my router. Put it in my DMZ, and I
these
just like
places-
saying that.
These attackers have servers that sit there and scan the
Yeah.
entire IP
they
space. of
they
the
scan
planet
the
all day
everything.
long.
They scan the whole
Right.
internet all day long just to find stuff to
You know how you
attack.
stop that?
You
It's really easy.
Firewall the hell out of them
No, you move to IPv6. They'll never scan you again.
because they don't check that because no one's there.
No, it has nothing to do with no one's there. Good luck scanning the IPv6.
Oh, it's so huge, right?
range. Yeah. The chances of you getting scanned are
It's
like
huge.
astronomical.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's what I'll do
You know,
next
like-
time I want to self-host. Then I'll put it on
You get
IPv6.
assigned like by default. You get assigned like 256 internets of IP space.
Nice.
Like that's your normal address.
Nice. Some of my earliest adventures into self-hosting were with my Red Hat 5 machines, not Enterprise Linux, but Red Hat 5 machines, and they would get broken into so frequently because they'd be connected right to my cable modem. I didn't know a damn thing about firewalling. I didn't know a damn thing about encryption because at the time, Telnet was the way you managed a Linux server. Pretty quick, pretty steep learning curve there.
Yikes!
Lots of trial by fire.
I still run Telnet. They just put it on port 24 and nobody notices.
Nobody finds it then, right?
Terrible.
All right. So, I think that's it. We're going to go to our transition-y screen, and we'll be back with our chat in a little bit. So, see you guys in a few. welcome back, folks. I feel like I need to play the transition music just because we're back now. Because I think people miss the purple button. You know?
So I had to check Twitch to make sure the stream looked okay because everything coming from your computer to mine right now is green.
Really?
I don't know why. Everything.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you were going for that old CRT effect, but the
Really?
stream-
Everything's
No, it's
green?
not
That's
insane
fun. It
anything,
doesn't look that way from
yeah.
here.
Oh, it's insane. It's almost like when if you knocked out like the red and the blue.
That's awesome. Should I leave it that way or try to fix it? Do you like it green?
no.
I don't. Oh, you just fixed it. What'd you do?
Nothing.
You did?
I did
Doesn't look green
nothing.
to me.
Oh, there we go again.
Really?
Yeah, really.
That's awesome. Is it when
This
is it when I speak and Zoom highlights me for you that it turns green?
Well, now I switched the layout, so I see us in equal thirds. It's solid green.
It's just solid green. What if I
Well, it's not solid green. No, it's got a green tinge. Now it goes Nate layer. No, it's still green.
It's still
Dude, but
that's
again,
awesome.
I'm monitoring. You know what I'm going to do?
I'm gonna
gonna
go
screen
ahead
cap
and
it.
I'm gonna go ahead and blame Zoom because on the stream it looks perfect, in OBS it looks perfect, and on my screen in Zoom it looks perfect. So it's a you problem.
Apparently it's Mark and I. So
It's a Zoom
whatever.
problem because it's not broken on this end.
Yeah. Well,
That's awesome. Ah, the internet.
yeah. Look in the show notes. That's what we say on the bottom of the show notes.
Oh, you've put it in the show notes?
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
see here. Oh, that's awesome. It is green.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
I just clipped a part of the screen. And
Maybe
myself,
I'll-
I don't know why I did me. I just a comparison, but it looks fine on the stream.
Maybe I'll
And
include
the guys
that.
watching the stream are saying,
They're like,
it's fine.
what? Why are they going off on this? We can't. Oh, look, nice guy. Thanks a lot, Jason.
You're welcome.
Now we can see how
wanted
green
to
it
make sure
looks.
that everybody knew.
Uh, all right, so we're at the part of the show where we talk about how green Zoom is, and we give you our announcements. And the only announcements I have are the usuals because, I don't know, do either of you have any announcements you wanted to add that we didn't?
I just wanted to show off my new green screen.
It's a nice green
That's
screen.
awesome. It's literally a green screen.
It's a great green screen. All right, so right, Patreon update. We're making, as usual, this hasn't changed.
Fat stacks.
$86 a month from Patreon, and our list of patrons this month is Rudy's God, Bruce, Robert, Matt, David, Solemn with a 3 and a 0. I think it's a 0 in there. Trooper-ish, Linux, Sys666, Gimpy B, Ryan, Mark with a K, Dementor from PowerShell on Linux, John the Nice Guy, Mark with a C, Julius, Andy, Jay, Charles, and 22532. So thank you. Thank you to all of you who have decided that you want to pay for this show, even though you don't need to. It's awesome. Thank you. So now I want to know why in the background that you're sharing. Oh, that's your Zoom thing. Okay, I see now. I'm like,
Wait,
why are there two normally colored videos at the upper
there?
corner there? Yeah, that's okay. That's Zoom.
That's the
Zoom showing you the other
preview of
people.
The other, yeah.
Okay,
I was too lazy to take it off screen.
Not green.
it just caught my eye.
I'll cover it up.
That's much better. Thank you. All
So,
right.
P, who was a former Red Hatter, who's a Red Hatter again. DP points out in the YouTube chat that there's a podcast dedicated to self-hosting.
Indeed.
Self-hosted.show.
So, as I mentioned, this was not supposed to be tonight's topic. What I was thinking when I first had the idea for the topic was that I would reach out to that fellow Red Hatter and ask them if they want to be on the show. But maybe we'll have a follow-up episode where we do that.
Oh, so DP's a Red Hatter, but is the guy who does self-hosted? Oh, that's Alex. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's all.
Now I
coming
want to know
together.
if their website is on the self-hosted stuff.
That's a good
Are they
question.
Self-hosted? Is self-hosted?
Oh, Knowing Alex, it is.
Are you going to dig into that now and see if you can find out his home IP address and like See if you can get into his home security cameras or something and check out his kitchen. That'd be weird.
That would be weird.
Well,
All
he's
right.
British, so his kitchen will be all metric, so that'll be confusing.
It would be. He is from the UK, isn't he?
Yeah.
That would make it tough to have him on. I don't know what time zone he's in and how that would work out for the show.
Yeah.
We've talked about having some folks from the Admin podcast on the show, and it's never worked out because we haven't taken the time to figure out timing.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Likely story.
so as I was saying about Patreon, thank you guys for supporting the show. If anybody wants to support the show and not in a recurring, I just send you money and get nothing in return except a show sort of a way, you can do so by purchasing merchandise for the Iron Sysadmin podcast on our Teespring store. Teespring.com/stores/Iron Sysadmin, and that's in the show notes if you don't want to have to write that down. Merch. It makes the world go round. Oh, and I still have this link in here for the Live at Manning shows.
Alex is apparently not in the
Took
United
over.
Kingdom anymore. He's apparently on the West Coast now.
Oh,
And I'm assuming when Josh says the West Coast of the United States, not the West Coast of the
yeah,
United
like what's
Kingdom.
west of him? That would be the west coast of, that'd be like the east coast of what, Japan or something, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
West of him? Never mind.
Yeah. All right.
Now he said east. What do you mean east? And it would be European style cabinets.
East Coast. So he's on my coast.
So he's on east. Stop confusing us, J Scar.
So
We're
it
gonna-
sounds like his time might be completely compatible.
So
with
it
this
sounds
show,
like
so
it might
that's
be
nice.
might be a possibility. So I could still revisit this later. Good.
So he's probably in North Carolina then, because that's where Red Hatters tend to land if they're coming from outside of the country.
Could be. J Scar, you're not on the best coast. You're on the coast where they turn off your power because of forest fires.
Don't make us have a rap battle, East Coast versus West Coast rap.
So in the off-road space, there is a constant battle between East Coast and West Coast because the West Coast has these like famous, iconic wheeling destinations like Moab, Utah, where you get these spectacular views and crazy like wall climbs that you can drive a vehicle up. But on the East Coast, you get these like tighter trails that are harder to navigate or whatever, and there's always a battle between which one is better. Are the spectacular
the East
views
Coast-
better, or the tighter, more technical trails better? And it's just like a
The
constant
East
back
Coast
and forth.
you probably have a higher probability of running into a good moonshiner too on the East Coast.
Theoretically. West Coast is the best coast. Yeah, if you say so, I'll take some convincing. So anyway, we don't have any new reviews. Oh, did you guys, Jason, you don't have any announcements for anything, do you? When's B-Sides next?
Well, I mean,
Like 8 months from now.
yeah, it's typically in November.
Yeah.
The plan was to have a meetup, an admin meeting this month. But it's been a bit of a wild month.
What are you talking about?
I kind of didn't do it because so maybe next month we'll start planning.
Cool. So, right, reviews. We don't have any new reviews. So, folks, go out and review the show if you haven't done so already. The shows get a couple hundred downloads per show. And we have certainly not have a couple hundred reviews. So, some of you are slacking. And that's shameful. You should be ashamed of yourselves. You should all go review the show. Positively, though, not badly. Mark gets offended when you review badly.
We'll read negative reviews about Mark singing.
I mean, maybe it's a situation where any publicity is good publicity.
You're probably
So,
right.
you know.
So go review the show, folks. Then I'll have something to read in this space.
Yeah, that would be good.
If you have something to advertise, put it in the reviews and we'll read it as a review.
I don't know
There
if
you
that's
go.
going to work. That doesn't usually get... I am very opposed to people trying to sneak advertisements into anything. I'd probably catch it. Unless you... I mean, if you word it in such a way that I read your review and your advertisement and don't realize it, then you win.
A winner is you.
Sounds like the gauntlet has been thrown down.
So go review the show. Try to work an advertisement into it. We'll see what happens. All right. So it's been a month since we recorded last. What have you guys been up to? Anything fun? I know Jason finished his cool little arcade machine that he showed us a while back.
Well, I finished building the arcade and the cabinet, and I got the TV for it, and I put the Raspberry Pi together, and I had it running, and then I took it apart, and then I had it running, and I took it apart. But I've gotten graphics for it now.
Why do you keep taking it apart? Oh, to get the... Okay.
I initially I was gonna put the games right onto the SD card, and then I was doing more research, and apparently that's a really bad idea. So then I have them on a share now. So
Does
I
it
gotta rejigger some stuff.
Does it cause too much read and write to the SD card and cause
I
failure?
guess, yeah, it'll destroy the SD card really quick. So
That's interesting.
so instead, I have them on a share on my NAS. So that'll work. And then I got graphics made for the arcade cabinet itself. So I've been working on getting those put on. So today I picked up a router and a like a wood router.
Like a Cisco or like a Juniper?
No,
Did you go to the new age?
No. No, it's I don't have it in here anymore. It's a DeWalt.
I didn't know they made Oh, that kind of router. Okay.
Yeah.
The kind of routers before we had routers.
So I picked up this stuff called T-trim. Oh, looks like this. It's just the trim that goes on the edges of the cabinet.
Oh, that's cool.
So you have to
and it's shaped like a T, isn't it? That's why
you have to route a channel for the T to go into.
Yeah.
So I went out and got a decent router and found the bit that I needed and got the bit and did that today. I
That's
did that
cool.
actually just before the show. And had more problems with that than I've ever had in my life doing anything.
Just routing the channel or putting the thing on?
Wow.
Yeah, routing the channel. So there's some repair work that I have to do now.
I'd imagine that would have to be super like how do you keep it centered and everything? Was that the problem you ran into? Or does the router have a
router
guard on it?
So the router has, I mean, it has the guide on it, and it's, you set the height and everything, and that was fine. That I thought was, I pulled it out and was checking it and tightening it and everything else, thinking that was the problem. That wasn't the problem. Apparently I somehow bought the cheapest goddamn bit in the world, and the damn thing warped as I was using it.
Yeah, he'll do that to a cheap bit.
Okay.
Is that a 2-bit bit? People use the word 2-bit to describe cheap things.
Yeah, I guess it just warped and caused the channel.
Nobody laugh. That's fine.
I'm shaking my head. Don't you see that?
So yeah, that was today's fun. So now I have to
J-Scar, I see what you did there.
I have to fix that. So, but I'll figure it out. I'm not overly worried about it. But it is quite annoying that it did what it did.
Yeah, I guess so. So did it warp and then you had like a crooked cut, or was it not cutting?
Well, right. So I think what was happening is, so I was pushing down on it, making sure that it's staying straight, going along the side, and then it like tipped up on its own. I was like fighting it to keep it down. I pull it out, and it turns out the channel's going up like this. So I'm like, the hell's going on? I put it back in and I cut it, and then I'm measuring it as I go. I have a little piece of the T-molding that I'm putting in all the way around, and at one point it slides over to the side. I'm like, what the hell? And I when I was done, I looked at the bit. I'm like, the bit is like this now. I'm like, oh,
That'll do it.
Figured out what the problem is.
That'll do it.
So
That'll do, pig.
So next time when you buy a nice expensive router, buy a nice expensive bit to go with it.
I thought
the router ain't worth nothing if you don't have a nice bit to go with it.
Yeah, apparently. So it was. I mean, I don't know if it was. I'm guessing it was partly cheap bit and partly that it's a small. It's only a 16th inch bit.
Yeah.
Like a
well, yeah. If you're
blade.
So if you're like pressing on it too much, or if you're cutting too long, I'd imagine it would heat up and warp.
Yeah. Well, I did it in like 3-foot sections.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't think that was too long to cut.
I don't Well, it depends. I mean, was the thing like smoking hot when you pulled it out?
After I was completely done, yeah, it was actually it was warm. I mean, every bit gets warm by the time you're done. I wouldn't say it
Yeah,
was like
warm's okay,
super
but if
hot.
it's hot enough to warp the steel or whatever the bit's made
Yeah,
of, then it's
it wasn't like it was. I was doing it in the cold garage too. It wasn't even like it was smoking.
hmm.
So it was hot, but it wasn't really like kicking off a lot of steam. But whatever, live and learn.
Yeah, I guess so.
If I build an arcade cabinet, I'll do it differently.
I've
And if I did differently, I mean I'll have them cut it before me before I get the pieces.
I'll do it
Yeah.
differently. So, how you feel about that self-hosting versus paying somebody else to get your work done discussion now?
Yeah, I'm good with the self-hosting. The woodworking, I'm not so good at.
But I mean, did you have fun and did you learn something? That's the key.
Or do you hate your life?
It was I have to do it more to learn more.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a once and done. Hopefully, don't have to do it again type thing.
The things that I have to do more to learn more, I prefer that those involve meat or things that, well, we're already an explicit podcast, but I'm not going to go there anyway.
Ah,
Those,
Yeah.
I guess, would also involve a form of meat. But anyway, yeah, yeah. What? What? Yeah. Anyway, hi.
good enough, Mark.
Waiting for Nate to dig us out of that one.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna dig us out of that one, except
You're not. We're just going to go to the. We're going to go to full chat, I suppose.
well, we
So
kind of
let's
we're kind of in full chat mode. I just didn't go in order because
Yep.
Jason didn't put anything in the notes anyway. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. What else have I been doing? Fighting with my 3D printer.
what do you mean by
That's a
fighting?
thing.
I put a BL Touch on the 3D printer.
Uh huh.
Um, and as it turns out, after a couple of months of dealing with this, I think I'm going to learn how to compile my own Marlin code for firmware, because Ender's firmware, when it
For
comes
BL
to the BL
Touch?
Touch, is
Yeah.
garbage.
Yeah.
Absolute garbage.
I
I have
have-
put every single version that they have out. I put it on this printer at least twice.
I have found
Print.
firmware to be the one major failing, firmware distribution, the
Yep.
one major failing that Ender has publicly available at the moment. Because when I got mine, I guess folks may not know, I picked up a 3D printer for Christmas for my daughter because she wanted a 3D printer, and of course, I don't think she had any idea what she was asking for when she asked for a 3D printer. But I wasn't going to say no. I wanted a 3D printer. so, so I've had quite a bit of experience in the 3D printing world since Christmas time, and one of the things was the printer came with a pretty ancient firmware on it, and I don't understand why, but it did. So just trying to find the right firmware to flash to it was kind of a challenge because there's like 3 different places to get it from, and like one of them's the message forum, and the other one's their website,
You
and
got
then
an
there's
Ender,
another.
right?
Yeah, Ender 5 Pro.
Okay, so so I don't know if you've noticed this yet. There are an awful lot of Creality websites.
There's at least
They're
2.
They're all different companies.
Yeah, you said that before. I ordered mine directly from Creality 3D Official,
Yep, which I think is the. Or
which I think is official.
I'm not even sure.
Because I
And-
remembered you saying that, and I was trying to find
Yeah.
the one that I thought was actually official, and that seemed to be it.
Several of them have firmware, and yeah, a couple of them keep changing. So from reading on the Reddit site, there's an Ender community on Reddit. It seems that the consensus is screw Creality, compile your own.
Oh yeah. I haven't really had a reason to tinker with the firmware at this point. I got the firmware up to date because I was trying to
Right.
fix a problem I was having, and I use Octopi for everything else. So
Right.
the
So
firmware,
Octopi
I almost do
great,
nothing
yeah.
that has to do with the firmware.
Right. It's when you get to if you install BL Touch, you well, hopefully you won't have problems, but I've run into nothing but problems.
Yeah, I
And-
haven't
and
done
my son
BL
has
Touch
as
is for
well.
self leveling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be. I mean, you'd think it'd be rather simple, but it's not.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. So
I'll-
so
I-
this thing,
poking at it.
I'm finally getting this thing replaced at the end of the month. The monoprice will be back in stock at the end of January because when I finally contacted them about the issues I'm having. He's like, yeah, we're just going to replace it. So
Oh, nice.
I don't know if I'd buy Monoprice again, honestly, because I'm not sure how many times I've RMA'd totally. And so I'm thinking maybe that they're just pieces of garbage. And
Perhaps.
Well, it's a monoprice. You get what you pay for. They are incredibly inexpensive.
yeah, well, what you just said. So, and I've had some fun with it. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's just like, ugh, what next?
So
So hopefully the replacement will last longer than this. I mean, this thing's been out of action since March because I just didn't want to friggin' deal with it before I went on vacation. And then the pandemic hit and I just couldn't be bothered.
because you didn't have any time, you're too busy going out doing things.
I just I didn't feel like dealing with it. Ugh.
Yeah. So, anyway. So I guess we've already sort of dovetailed into my own chat, which is I've got a 3D printer now, and I've been doing nothing but printing. It's been like 24/7 printing something since I got it.
I remember those days.
Which is kind of, it seems to be what happens when you get a 3D printer.
Those were fun. Those were fun days.
Well, but you should get the damn thing fixed, and then you can go back
I'm
to
working
printing
on
stuff
it.
24/7, right?
I'm working on it.
So I know that on the stream my camera is tiny, but I have been tinkering with printing
And green.
minifig. Well, it's not green for everybody else. It's only green for you.
True.
So this minifig is going to look green to you, right? Is it green?
Not if I look on the YouTube.
Okay. So I've been trying to print minifigs on my Ender 5 Pro, and it has been quite the rabbit hole to get these things. To
How's
get these
the
things
resolution?
to print right. So that was the initial problem, right? When I first got the thing, I had trouble with the heated bed, and I thought it was because the heated bed arrived defective. I thought it was shorted, and it turned out that I was just measuring it wrong. Turns out that that seems to be a common thing for me, where I think I'm absolutely certain I know what the problem is, and I go down that for 2 weeks and then find out that I just made a mistake at the beginning, and it wasn't actually the problem. That wasn't the problem. It wasn't shorted. It was such a simple thing, as it always is, on the power supply for the printer, since it came from China, was set to 220. Yep. And the only indicator that that was a problem was that the heated bed didn't work.
Oh, now, see, you're lucky. Mine was set that way too, but every time I went to print, the whole machine shut down.
No, so mine would print fine if I turned off the heated bed. If I left the heated bed connected and turned it on, it would just flash the screen at me. Right? So I started looking into what the hell that meant, and someone said, oh, the heated bed is probably defective. Check the resistance across the leads on the heated bed. So I did, but I had the freaking meter set to the wrong level, right? So of course it measured almost 0 because I had it set a whole order of magnitude off on the damn dial. And when I set it to the right one, it measured properly, right? So I found that out later. But in the meantime, I updated the firmware. And then after updating the firmware and plugging in the heated bed, it would do something different. It would turn on now, but there was some other issue. I forget what it was. And that led me to thinking that it was not, in fact, the heated bed that was the problem. And then I looked further. I found someone else that said, I had that exact same problem. And they said, oh, the damn power supply was switched to the wrong unit. So I switched it, and boom, it worked.
Yep.
Boom,
exactly.
There we go again with Emerald.
Same thing I had.
So, yeah, very, very... In fact, I think once I updated the firmware, it may have done what you were describing, where you'd try to print and it would shut down or it would do something weird.
Yeah.
As soon as it would try to initialize the heated bed, it would crap out.
It would heat up the hot end perfectly. It got hot.
Yep.
It looked great. It would kick in the bed to heat the bed up, and the whole thing would reboot. And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I think that is what it was doing. It would reboot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting that like half of the machine seemed to work just fine.
Oh yeah, I had that switch set the wrong way and the heated bed disabled for a week, and I was printing stuff.
Yeah.
Right? While I was trying to figure out what was wrong with the heated bed, and it would print because, I was trying to figure out what to do with it, trying to figure out how to print and whatever. And I thought, well, they're going to have to send me a new heated bed. And while I was troubleshooting with them, I was using it. I was actually printing stuff and it was working. So yeah, it was just when I turned on the heated bed that it would give me trouble. So weird.
Oh my.
Yeah. Sounds
Weird
like you've
stuff.
got Octoprint set up too.
I do now, yes, and it's pretty damn cool. So
I've got Octoprint. I've got the Raspberry Pi. I printed a case for it, so it's the on the right underneath where the display is. The case slides right over that, and the Raspberry Pi goes right in there.
Really? Where'd you
Yes.
find that?
On
Thingiverse?
Thingiverse, yeah.
Do you still have a? Yes, send me a link to it because I printed a normal case that has little holes in it that you can mount to like a wall or something, and I was gonna find those little toggles that fit into the frame of the Ender 5, and I was gonna just mount it to the frame. But if there's one that's built to fit on the display, I'd rather do that. That'd be
Slides right
cool.
over it. Slides right over it, and it actually has a channel for you. A channel for the cable for
The camera?
the camera.
Good.
So I have a cable that comes out and goes up to. I bought a special camera, a bigger.
I'm just
there's
using a
a-
Raspberry Pi camera.
It is a Raspberry Pi camera, but it's a bigger, longer one. Really really nice resolution. So it goes up to that, and I printed a mount that the camera goes on and points directly at the bed.
That's cool. Yeah, so it turns out the Raspberry Pi camera version 2, which is the one I happen to have laying in my box when I set the thing up. If you take the board and you turn it upside down so the cable is poking out of the top, it'll fit right in the rail on the Ender 5, and then you can put a zip tie around it and it looks perfectly at the build plate. So that's what I'm doing right now. So yeah, worked out.
Yeah, I'll send you I'll send you the link to the camera that I got. The thing is insane. I've got a case and everything printed for it.
That's cool. So yeah, the world of 3D printing is quite entertaining, and I don't want to go too deep into it tonight. Maybe we could have another show about 3D printing. I don't know,
It could be multiple episodes. It's
It could
crazy. There's so
definitely-
much to it.
definitely be. But last night I did a presentation for DEF CON 610, which anybody who saw a stream go live on Iron Sysadmin last night, that was it. You can go back and watch it on YouTube if you really want to. But I talked about basically my first couple of weeks in 3D printing land, because it's only been, 3 weeks, I guess, since I set the thing up. And it's been quite the learning curve. I mean, the amount of stuff I've had to tinker with and figure out in the past 3 weeks is just like crazy.
Have you delved into G code yet?
I have not directly.
Oh.
I don't know if I intend
It's
to.
crazy.
It's
Basically a giant ass text file of commands.
It
Yes,
is, but
It's the exact commands of what the thing, and sometimes you need to look at it.
Yep, you can do some pretty neat things with it.
But no, I've been learning a bit about supports so I can try to do these minis better. Like,
Yeah.
again, you guys can't
Which-
see me all that well, but here I have my mini printed. He came out perfect, but there's a support stuck in the mini that I can't get out without destroying the
Yeah.
mini.
Which slicer are you using?
I'm using Cura.
Okay.
Cura's got so many options for supports.
Yeah, so what I did is I found a guy online who he runs a YouTube channel where he basically talks about how to print minis. Like, imagine, like, it's that deep of a topic. And he actually took his Cura settings and published them. So he just exported them and you can download them and throw them into Cura. I did that last night and I got a pretty darn good print. It's this guy here, right? Like, you can see him. He is cut out. He's a little dwarf fighter for my D&D campaign. He has one or two minor problems, and the supports were still difficult to get off. So, but this guy doesn't use tree supports. He uses standard supports, which are tough to get out of a mini because the mini just ends up encased in plastic.
It can.
But so I want to use tree supports. So I found this plugin for Cura that will let you physically just like manually place supports. So what I'm doing now, so like this one, this archer, if you can see the archer I'm holding up, she has a quiver on her hip, and that never gets supported well by the tree supports. So I can't print this one with tree supports. Grillthorn, that's this dwarf. When I use tree supports, this arm never prints. I have like 3 prints of him. Here's one with no arm, right? Because he won't print with his arm, not the arm holding the axe, but his other arm, because it doesn't get supported well by tree supports. So what I can do now is I can manually place a support under that arm. He's got a ponytail. I've put one under the ponytail, and then there's another piece of him that forgets. I forget which it is. It doesn't print right. I put those in manually and then turn on tree supports, and the whole rest of the figure gets supported normally with the tree supports, and it's printing right now. We're going to see how it turns out at the end.
How many benches have you printed?
I have printed none of those. That's cool.
Oh,
Little boat.
Yeah, it's called the 3D Benchy, and basically what it is, it's a it looks very simple. It looks like a little boat.
Yeah.
It is it basically tests the hell out of your printer.
Oh
because
yeah.
it- all of the supports and ladder, like all the stuff that you would that is really really difficult for your printer to do, it has it in it. So if you can print a perfect Benchy, you usually on a good path to being able to print really nice stuff.
Cool. So I'm looking at Octopi right now, and Grillthorn has finished printing, and I really want to go look and see if he's correct now, but I can't because we're in the middle of the podcast.
Ugh,
And that would be rude.
So anyway, yeah, there were two other things I want to touch in the chat. I don't know, Mark, if you want to talk about anything you want to chat about first, and then I'll hit those.
So yeah, I had a decision to make because Red Hat has these things called Red Hat rewards. For those
Mhm.
who aren't aware, you can basically each Red Hat employee is given points each quarter, I think, to give out to other Red Hatters for being helpful. And so I had a bunch of people give me reward points towards the end of the year, and I ended up with essentially like $500 worth of them. You can turn them into gift cards or Visa
Mhm.
cards or whatever. So the question was PS5, uh, Valve Index headset, or big monitor, and I put my name in for an Index headset only because there's a little bit of a back order, and that came up for me yesterday. Like you can pay for it now, so that won the contest.
Because
So
it
my
was
Valve
first.
Index, well, and I think it's what I really wanted
First in,
because
first paid for.
I have the HTC Vive. The Index you can do an upgrade in place because it'll use the base stations and the controllers. It'll use the HTC Vive controllers. You don't need to buy the Index ones.
Oh, that's cool.
And because what I've discovered, kids, is if you wanna find a hobby that'll gulp as much hardware
Go into
as a
VR.
fat kid going after cake, well, not just VR, but flight simulators in VR.
Oh, yeah.
Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, I had always said I was going to hold off until VR support came, and they dropped it in December. So I bought it about a week or so ago, and I've spent a lot of time dorking around with it. I actually got to the point where I have a GTX 1070,
Mm-hmm.
which used to be an awesome card. Now it's a good card, right? But it's not the most current. I was overclocking it the other day, figuring out how to do that. And I've got VR working. I've got a decent balance, I think, between frame rate and visuals. Now on flat screen, it looks amazing. That's not even a challenge. But on VR, it has to do a lot more work. But
Yeah.
the problem with the OG Vive, the original Vive, in a Cessna with analog gauges and stuff, I can read them fine. You use a newer Cessna with like the built-in avionics, the LCD displays, or like a modern jet with the I can't friggin' read the stuff, like because of the resolution.
Huh.
So
That's
the Valve
that's a terrible problem to have.
yeah. So the Valve is basically conventional wisdom says the Valve is pretty much the best all-around consumer level headset. The Reverb G2 technically has a higher resolution, but the refresh and all that other stuff isn't as high. And I think that the 1070, it wouldn't be able to push the resolution for the reverb. The resolution would just be too much. So I decided the Index was going to be what I went for. So yeah, so hopefully I'll have an Index definitely by the next show.
That's cool.
But much like 3D printing, optimizing your system for the virtual reality and the stuff like that, and the flight simulator stuff. No, I'm never. No, Oculus. No, I'm not touching that. I want to get more away from Facebook than I am.
Anybody who wonders
Please.
why all of a sudden Mark was drawn into that, it's because J Scar mentioned it
Jay
in the
Star
chat.
said the Oculus in chat. No, not only no, but
Heck no.
hell no. Yeah. So, but that's my big technical update. Other than the fact my 3D printer, I'm going to get that replaced.
Mhm.
And then Jason and I were talking before the show. The other game that's been sucking away a lot of my cycles is this little ditty called Oxygen Not Included. Oxygen Not Included. It's one of those games where you don't directly build things. You have workers that you assign priorities to different tasks, and then they go about, and fun happens. It's based on a genre that I first played. The first game I played in the genre is an oldie but a goodie called Dwarf Fortress, and then there was a game called RimWorld, which both fine games, but Oxygen Not Included hits a sweet spot for me. Where the other two games, I just kind of Dwarf Fortress is a really tough one to get into, and RimWorld, well, fun. It got to the point. It got to the point where I would always get slapped in the face by the bugs that would attack. But Oxygen Not Included, I'm having more fun with it.
That's cool.
Yeah. Uh, so, but yeah, the VR is the thing I'm bigly excited about.
I don't think
Bigly
I've
excited.
played any games since we came back from our week off. It's kind of sad. I should do that more.
I must confess that my Oxygen Not Included and Flight Simulator time has taken away from me making new content for a D&D campaign. So I should feel bad about that. But
should.
part of me really doesn't.
You should, damn it. Totally
Because
feel
what
bad
we've
about
been doing
that.
is on those Tuesday nights, we've been doing board games instead, using Board Game Arena.
Yeah.
Oh, and Cyberpunk, I did I did my first playthrough on Cyberpunk on the PC, and on PC it's a good game.
Yeah, I've played. I'm like just. Well, I don't want to give away any of the plot, but I feel like I've just finished the intro.
Did it do the Cyberpunk 2077 splash screen yet? Because you get a splash screen when you actually are done with the intro.
No, maybe not. Maybe I'm not done with it then.
You're not done with the intro.
It's crazy. I don't have much time into it, an hour or two.
I don't even.
Yeah,
know.
there's no way you're done with the intro.
Okay, cool.
I haven't even gotten it yet. I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Cool.
I've heard good things about Odyssey.
But yeah,
Pretty
Cyberpunk is fun. I for whatever reason, so when you started talking about Cyberpunk, when you first got it, Mark, I went and started playing Fallout 4 because I had never finished it and I really wanted to play more of it. And then I decided I'm just going to go ahead and buy Cyberpunk. So I bought Cyberpunk and I played an hour or two of Cyberpunk and then I went back to Fallout 4. So I played several hours of Fallout 4 during our week off and didn't go back to Cyberpunk yet. So I'm going to have to.
Fallout
and then I'll
4,
forget all the damn controls.
I love
and-
Fallout 4.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It's a fun game. So anyway, we've gone quite on a bit here. There were two things I wanted to mention. One, if anybody has tried Mastodon, are you familiar with Mastodon?
I feel like I should know
It's a
Mastodon.
decentralized social network,
No,
right?
haven't tried it.
It's like Twitter, but it's decentralized. It's basically the same feel as Twitter, but it's decentralized. Actually, J Scar and I had a conversation about it probably back in November or something. And I decided to go ahead and give it a shot. And I signed up on a cool service called Librum One, which Josh mentioned to me. It's more than just a Mastodon instance. They also incorporate, like, the point is that it's supposed to be private. It's supposed to be no ads. It's supposed to be they don't mine your data. It's not just Mastodon, but it also includes chat, which happens to be based on Matrix, which is the same thing I've been doing our Iron Sysadmin community on. And there's a couple other things. The free tier, there is a pay tier. The free tier gives you Mastodon and chat, and that's it, and that's really all I care about. But if you pay for it, you can get like VPN, and there's a couple other things, mail, like secure mail and stuff. I don't know. I just think it's fun. If you look up at Gangriff at Librum.1, you can find me on Mastodon. I also set up an account for the podcast. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. If we end up with followers there, then so be it. But it's there. If you look up at Iron Sysadmin at Librum.one, you can find the podcast there. I don't know if it's ever going to catch on. I know a couple folks who use it, so I was already aware of it when I talked to Josh about it, or JScar, if you're looking in the chat. I was already aware of Mastodon. I didn't know about Librum One. But there it is. I'm giving it a try because I'm kind of sick of Facebook and I'm kind of sick of Twitter. Kind of sick of just about all of the major social platforms. I don't know. Librum One is currently a better place, but I think it's because no one's there. So I guess we'll see if it ever grows in popularity. But yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff on Librum One if anybody's interested in that. And the other thing is more of a conversation I wanted to have, and it actually goes around our community / chat platform. So we started on Slack, as you might remember. I got kind of sick of the way Slack handles their invite system, and I moved us to Matrix because, well, I wanted to try out Matrix. I thought it was a fun platform, and it's a lot easier to do invites because it's more of an open thing, and I can host my own server, which is kind of fun. And we got some folks there, right? I have a link set up so that when you chat on one platform, it goes to the other. There's a link between the general channel in the Iron Sysadmin Slack and the main Iron Sysadmin podcast channel on Matrix, right? So when messages go to one, they go to both. I started working on setting up a more private channel for us to have our internal podcast discussion, but that didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, so we still do that on Slack. Now it's all kind of like mixed and almost, I won't say broken, but it's like now there's two places to manage stuff, right?
Sounds broken to me.
And there's not a lot of buy-in for Matrix. I've talked to a number of folks that you would think would be all in on a self-hosted private messaging platform, and they're all like, we don't care. Use Discord. Right? So I wanted to ask the question of both you two as co-hosts and of the crowd who might be listening to this show. Should I just give up and make us a Discord community or Discord server? You can talk now, both of you, by the way. Like, what do you guys think? Should I go back to Slack? Should I just deal with the way their invites work? Should I tell the folks that are on Matrix, you can stay here if you want to, but all the main stuff's going to be happening in Slack? Do we make a Discord server? Discord, I had my issues with it. I still have one qualm about that whole profiles thing, but I've found a way to live with that by setting up a thing that I can run Discord in its own little containerized thing on my Windows machine, so my two profiles I can be logged into them both at the same time. One of them's in the Discord app and gets all the features. The other one's in kind of this little containerized browser thing, but it's good enough, right? Discord has cool features, like we could send this stream to Discord, which I know you think I'm saying wrong. Discord, I don't...
Discord.
However the hell you want to pronounce the word.
I say we just stand up our own IRC server.
We kind of did that with Matrix. So anyway, anyone listening to the show, if you have any feelings one way or the other, if you think we should just make the permanent home for the community surrounding Iron Sysadmin on Discord, maybe we'll do that. If you think Matrix is awesome, that's cool too. We can use Matrix. It doesn't integrate quite as well as Discord does. Discord has like a freaking trillion ways to integrate with things, which is another reason that I was kind of approaching it.
Running and Discord running pretty much 24/7 now because I've got business stuff in Slack and I've got, well, everything else is in Discord.
Yeah, as it is right now, like running 24/7 on any machine that I'm ever on is a web browser, Element, the Matrix client that I use, Discord, now 2 instances of Discord because I have to do it that way, and Slack, right? So if I could cut that down by 1, that'd be fine. I love the idea of Matrix, and part of why I wanted to put us there was to help with adoption of Matrix. But I've heard of lots of other communities that have tried to do that, and just nobody buys in. They just say, like, okay, you're going to be on something other than Slack or Discord, we're just not going to come. And I'm worried that that's what's happening to us, right? So if we go all in on Slack, I'll just figure out how to deal with the invite system, or we can go to Discord. But either way, a community is not a community unless there's actually people participating in it. And at the moment, Slack has almost no participation, and the Matrix community has some participation. I don't know if moving platforms is going to fix that or not, but if we can just like focus on one and make it awesome, maybe that would be the way to do it. So
I would just choose one. I mean, it sounds like Discord is probably the better.
you muted yourself on accident,
did.
apparently.
I mean,
Yep.
Mid sentence.
Zoom is hard.
But-
So
Yeah.
so
Let Jason finish his sentence.
Discord is sort of where everything is at right now. So
Right.
I would just say just move it to Discord, be done with it, and let that be that. I mean, I think part of the problem that we're running into, and what I'm seeing, and it's sort of across the board, is like the past 5 decades, that was 2020, has sort of exhausted a lot of people,
Yeah.
and it's kind of rough. Like, I don't have the energy to do this shit. Like I don't have the energy to sit and chat and jump through 100 different programs and try to figure out where everything is. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of fell off the radar for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are feeling the same thing. That's at least what I'm seeing. So, I say personally, I say just, go to Discord. Slack is never going to have the features that we want. Seems like Discord
No,
does.
Slack seems
Or
like it's not going in the same direction.
If you want to go to Matrix, that's fine, but I think you're only going to get certain types of followers on Matrix.
Yeah.
Discord is stupid easy. I'm already in many Discord channels. It's a no effort platform to use for me.
It is, and that's part of what makes me think this, right? So like I said, I love the concept behind Matrix. I wish we could all just use Matrix, but realistically, everyone's on Discord now, just like everybody was on Slack 2-3 years ago. Right, and I don't want to jump our community from place to place just based on what's popular at the time, but I do want it to be in one place. Yes, I can keep these bridges up and going, but if we set up a Discord server, what I'm probably going to do is give everybody on the Matrix community and everybody on the Slack community time to move, and I'm going to shut them both down because I don't want 3 things to manage. Right, like I don't mind managing the Matrix community and running the server that it depends on, because I like the project and I think it's cool. But if no one's there, it doesn't matter. So, anyway, I don't want to belabor this too much longer because we do still have news to cover and it's already almost 9. But if anybody has feelings on this, hop into whichever community you're in and let me know, or hit us up on Twitter.
I feel like we should use Discord just so we can figure out why you enunciate it the way you do, because it amuses me every time.
I don't even understand how I'm pronouncing it wrong. Discord. Discord?
Yeah, you think about, when you say it without
emphasize the
thinking about
wrong-
it, you emphasize you don't emphasize the proper syllable. It's funny. It's endearing, I would say.
Discord.
But anyway,
He has troubles with syllables.
So what? I don't.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's where you live. I don't know.
Maybe it's where I live. I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but there's a Jeep show that I listen to called the Jeep Talk Show, and they were giving away a thing called a jammock, which is it's a thing that you can mount to the roll cage on your Jeep that works as a hammock. I called into the show and said the word hammock, and they made fun of me about the way I say hammock.
Because you're saying it like someone who lives in backwoods Pennsylvania, like a bunch
Because
of
I
like-
live in Pennsylvania.
It's not
Well,
ham
that's-
hock,
there you
it's not
go.
Ham hock. It's a hammock.
Yeah, right.
Hammock,
So
right.
that's the way they
Do
were
you add-
pronouncing
do you
it,
add
and they
sen-
made fun
do
of me
you-
for it.
Do you end sentences arbitrarily with the word "yet" every so often?
Not yet.
Learn to word properly.
spell the word hammock and tell me where ick comes from.
Oh God! Listen to the Pennsylvanian.
Anyway,
You say it. It's hammock.
it's hammock.
Like we say it in Jersey. Hammock.
Hammock. It's the German in me.
Yes, hammock.
Oh, meanwhile, this is hilarious. I'm in a group chat, a spam group chat, where this one guy is flying into a rage. I mean, it's pure spam.
We can't
Like, it's
see
just
what's
a
on your
bunch of
screen because
numbers.
it's too bright. The
It
contrast
whited
doesn't.
out it. But this guy is like, "Renew my number. How did you all get it anyway?" Why are you people sending these messages? I'm reporting this to the authorities. And
Oh,
I, of
like a
course,
text group?
yeah. And I, of course, had to troll. I'm like, what authorities would those be?
Yeah.
And what's the fun? Just curious.
All right, I'm going to hit the purple button and we're going to talk about the news. How does that sound?
This guy is so bent that he's been added to the spam group.
Mark, I feel like the only proper way to handle that is to add more people to the group to ask them how to remove people from the group.
And then you end up with an unsubsquirrel.
I'm tempted. But, you know, there's 20 people in this, and it's exploded today. Normally, I just delete them, but
Yeah.
this one, I actually had to screen cap a few times because
I'm curious what the upper limit is. I know the upper limit on the number of people that you can tag in a tweet is 50.
Oh yeah, we found that out in Threadzilla.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, there's 20 of us in this, and I feel like these are my new family. Except for this one really angry dude. He is unhappy that he's in this group.
Well, he might be part of your family after the first couple news articles we have to talk about, if he's angry.
I'm not inviting him for Thanksgiving next year.
All right, so I feel like we have to talk about this subject, and it's not because necessarily of the people and service involved, but because of the way it's panning out, the way it's like the precedent that it sets. And folks, we talked about Parler a couple months ago, and I think I set my opinion of the service pretty clearly. I thought at the time there were a bunch of people that were sick and tired of the so-called censorship on other social media platforms, and they up and left or claimed they were up and leaving. Most of them didn't actually leave the other popular platforms and went to Parler because it's a free speech platform, quote unquote, free speech platform. I set up a Parler account at that point just to look around and see what it was all about. And I think on the show, I said, this is going to turn into a far-right conspiracy theory echo chamber, and I want nothing to do with it. So that's where I stand on Parler, like the service itself. You may have heard...
I think Parler's a cesspool of Nazi fuckwits.
Okay. I mean, that
would be my opinion.
That's probably a better way of summarizing the service Parler. So you may have heard that there was some unrest in the United States like a week ago. Actually, it was a week ago Wednesday, wasn't it? Where basically folks who were at essentially a Trump rally, led by their orange leader, stormed the Capitol. Now, I don't intend to talk about politics on the show. We always try to avoid it. It's going to be tough to avoid it with this particular topic, but I'm going to try to be careful. You may have gathered that from a lot of my opinions and whatnot on this show, I tend to lean a little more conservative. I still do not condone the actions that were taken. I also don't support the orange man in charge at the moment because I think he's an idiot. So, with all that out of the way, you may have heard that Parler is under fire at the moment. In fact, at the moment, I think they're dark.
They're done. They're not coming back.
You think they're not ever coming back?
They're not coming back. There's no way for them to come back at this point, and the CEO has basically admitted to that.
So I think back to a couple years ago, there was another service named Gab, if you remember, that was taken down for similar reasons because of the flat-out hate speech that was being spread around on their quote-unquote free speech platform. And I think we tackled it in the same way then, right? We talked about a very similar topic then, which is what I'm about to approach now. And as far as I know, they came back. They found another host, didn't they?
They yes, but it was not quite as they didn't go away in quite the same spectacular way that Parler went away. And Gab is where the Parler people have been moving to. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, right. It may end up
that wouldn't be a bad thing either.
May end up going anyway. So Parler was basically kicked off of the everything because of the content you could find on Parler. And the things or the reasons that were being cited by both Google and Apple and Amazon, Amazon AWS was their hosting provider, basically cited breaches of terms of service. They said that because they don't police the content on the platform and that it can incite violence, they've been removed from the Google Play Store, they've been removed from the Apple Store, Apple App Store, and they've been removed from AWS, which pretty much means they're gone. Unless they can find another host and move all their data, which I don't think. Do they even have access to their data now that they're gone? Were they deleted?
The rest
So-
of the internet has access.
Yeah,
to
the
their
rest of
data
the internet
because
scraped their data.
Yeah,
They
so
had a
there's all sorts of
terrible
stuff to get into
API.
here. So Google nuked their app. Apple nuked their app.
Yeah.
And then AWS came out this past Saturday and said we're turning you off on Sunday.
Sunday or Monday?
now,
Well, whatever. It was a
what
short
was-
time.
Right. It was the end of, I believe it was like 11:59.
I thought they had a
Sunday.
week or something.
Like
Was it
that.
only a few days?
No.
Okay.
It was overnight.
Okay.
What wasn't reported then, and I'm not sure if it was public or not, is that apparently in doing this, Amazon said, "Yeah, we're going to turn you off, but we will hold your data. We will help you migrate your data to a new platform."
Okay.
Right? So they're, yeah, we're kicking you off our service because we don't like you anymore, but it wasn't like we're burning you from, we're nuking you from orbit because it's the only way to be sure.
So they did arguably the right thing in this situation where we're not gonna block off access to your
Right.
own data, that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, that
and I don't know that it
makes
was
me a little
for-
happier.
right. I don't think it was done for, it really doesn't matter, but my guess is it wasn't done because it was the right thing. It was done because it covered AWS's ass. Because if they would have just nuked their data from orbit,
Yeah, That's why they
then
did it. I
there's-
guarantee.
Yeah. Then there's
They would have been
lawsuits
sued over the data not being accessible and that
Yep.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Parler has since sued them.
Tried to sue
and,
them.
Yeah, they're well. I mean, they've successfully sued them. They've
They just didn't
created
win.
a lawsuit
Yes,
against
okay.
AWS. AWS responded today. So Parler's problem, or Parler's claim, is that they have created a I forget the exact.
They're
term now.
violating the Sherman
Basically-
Antitrust Act.
No, it wasn't really an antitrust thing. It was a the fact that Amazon in getting booted off like this has basically destroyed, caused them irreparable harm. I think is what the
Mhm.
irreparable damage, I think was what they said. And Amazon's reply, which I think was first reported today, was basically like, you claim irreparable harm, but here's the definition of irreparable harm based on all these court cases. And you have stated publicly that you have all of the data, you weren't relying on Amazon, and you'll be back up in 12 hours, so it doesn't really matter.
Hmm.
How is it that we caused you harm?
Which is but I mean, they're not back.
So they're calling for the lawsuit to be thrown out, and it may
Yeah.
be because of that. Because I
It
mean,
could
that makes-
be. Yeah. Right.
You come out with a plan like, oh, they threw us off. 24 hours, we'll be back. Okay, sure. Yeah, there's Section 230 stuff. Like, there's all sorts of nonsense that's been thrown around. There's an awful lot of like, oh, you're breaking our First Amendment rights, which is not correct. But they've been booted. And what has followed suit is that after they were kicked off, a large number of other platforms where you can host this sort of data have basically publicly said, yeah, we're not going to host Parler.
Yeah.
Just prior to AWS booting them, Twilio kicked them off of their platform, effectively disabling their 2FA.
What's Twilio's
So-
multi-factor? Okay.
They were using Twilio for multi-factor. So the geniuses at Parler had written their code such that if Twilio goes away and there's no Twilio for two-factor, then you can put any number at all, any 6-digit number in, or I'm assuming it was 6. Everybody's 6 digits. You can just put any number in there you want, and it passes 2FA.
Assuming you have the password.
Right.
Yeah.
Your account with password.
Otherwise, it's not 2FA, it's 1FA.
Right. Well, it basically, because 2FA was, instead of blocking everybody because two-factor doesn't work anymore, they allowed
Right.
everybody in and effectively turned it into one factor.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Uh,
they wanted this. I can understand why they would have gone
Right.
that way, but you're right. It's not, from a security standpoint, it's not a good idea.
Yeah. About the same time, Archive Team jumped into
Yep.
action and identified the public APIs that were available for
Basically
Parler
scraped everything, yeah.
that allowed them to get all of the videos, pictures, and chats, and proceeded to download a
Everything.
reported 70 terabytes of
Mhm.
data from Parler.
When I first heard that, I thought, oh man, these people have actually broken into something and now they're sharing that data. And that's not really what happened. What they're sharing is publicly accessible data because of a
Archive Team, yes.
Yeah.
What Archive Team did
Yeah.
was publicly accessible. There are
Right.
reports that there were other actions taken that may have not been legal
Yeah. Right.
against Parler, and that admin accounts were
Surprise.
broken into. And
I mean,
so
really.
one of the things that was said was like they were able to reset passwords for accounts because two-factor didn't work. So now they could just get into the system. Like they just
Yeah.
like bypassed everything.
Yeah.
And took over the admin accounts. There's a thread on Reddit, I think, that sort of goes into a bunch of this. Regardless, 70 terabytes of data transfer from AWS is not cheap. So
No, I guess not.
suspect a very large bill is coming their way as well.
Oh, that sucks.
Yes, yes, I feel for them so much. Fuck them all. Yeah,
We're
so the
keeping
toast.
that explicit tag.
Hey,
You're earning
yeah,
that
right.
tag.
Well, Jason's got feelings.
This one, yeah.
I am.
Take care, J Scar.
Oh, he's got to go. All right, go eat your dinner. You're gonna miss the best conversation, best part of the
He's
conversation.
hungry. It's 6 o'clock on the wrong coast.
Yeah,
He's
you're right.
hungry.
On the worst coast. See, it starts with a W. It works, right? So anyway, I do not in any way condone the crap that went on Parler, but it really makes me curious about the precedent this all sets. And you probably know where I'm going here because I've stood on this soapbox before, where basically some of the biggest vendors in the tech industry have essentially shut this site down with almost no recourse, right? Like this site cannot come back unless they find someone that's sympathetic to their cause.
So Nate, here's the problem.
Okay.
They didn't arbitrarily shut the site down because they disagreed with them politically.
No.
If you read the 13-page court briefing and you read some of the content that was on there, they were in direct violation of the terms of service, and Amazon noticed this quite some time ago and gave them multiple opportunities to increase moderation and to get this vile content off their service.
The thing they're standing on, though, is that they weren't moderating the content.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
And so, they can do that, but you can't shit on my porch just because you're okay with shitting on the porch.
Hang on. The thing I'm concerned, and again, I'm not defending Parler, right? Some of the crap I've heard of that was posted on that thing is completely vile, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that they were given warnings makes me feel a little better. The fact that they weren't immediately just like dropped makes me feel a little better. They were given chances. However, the thing that all of the articles that I've read is standing on is that they violated an item in the terms of service that says they don't moderate content. Right?
Well, that's a lie because Parler's terms of service says they moderate content.
Amazon is under no obligation to waive their terms of service because Parler doesn't feel like moderating.
Well, right.
That's where I was going with my porch.
Yeah.
Like,
here's the thing I'm
to
worried about.
Okay.
The thing I'm worried about is there are lots of other platforms that don't moderate content. There are lots of other, like our conversation about self-hosting, right? If I'm going to host my own stuff and I either cannot because I can't see the data or I cannot because I do not have the manpower moderate the content. If I run a Mastodon instance and people are spreading hate on there and I either don't notice it because I'm not looking at their data, I'm not scraping their data, I'm considering it private, or because I simply do not have the time to moderate it, and I'm
Right.
doing this as a hobby, right?
Right.
I could be kicked off too under those terms.
Yep.
Kicked off of where?
Kicked off of
Whatever.
wherever I'm hosting.
Wherever
You're
whoever's
self-hosting.
providing-
No,
You're
no,
hosting
no,
in your
right. No,
basement.
No,
so
but-
self-hosting, if I'm hosting my own application on a cloud provider or on any provider.
Well, that's unfortunately, and here I am. I'm going to be Captain Obvious. If you're going to use somebody else's hardware and you agree to the terms of using that hardware or service, those are the rules. You might be okay with your children peeing on the floor. If you're coming to visit my house and I say I don't want your kids peeing on the floor, and you come to my house and you let your kids pee on my floor regardless of my explicit wishes, I'm going to tell you to leave and take the kids with you,
But
because those were my terms of service.
I'm never coming to your house, Mark.
right, right.
Between people crapping on the porch and peeing on,
Peeing
the, floor, I'm not sure I want to be there.
Here's the thing, right? So here, and again, I'm trying not to fall in with the crowd of conservatives that are jumping up and down saying this is a violation of freedom of speech, because it isn't, right? I'm not going that way. But we're in a world where it's becoming less and less common to be able to host stuff yourself without a cloud provider being involved. My ISP doesn't want me running a website in my basement.
Dude, so let me rewind 20 years. Maybe 30 years. I wanted to be a writer. When I was in college, I fancied myself a writer of short stories. For me, for lots of people to see them, I had to submit them to magazines or whatever else to be published.
Mm-hmm.
That was the mechanism. There was no other way for that to happen. Nowadays, anybody can basically publish anything. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Again,
but
you still have to deal with the terms of service for where you're publishing.
Right. So, if I want to publish objectionable content, my only option might be to stand up servers in my house or in a data center that has loose terms of service, and then people can read it. But the point is, it is not anyone's absolute right to use resources that you are essentially renting any way you want. You enter an agreement. And that's the reality of capitalism. That's the reality of regulation.
The thing I'm worried about is what world that leaves us with. If that leaves us in a world, what's that?
We've been in that world forever. Every business has the right to refuse you service for any reason.
Yeah.
Unless you're violating specific discriminatory statutes.
Correct.
Right.
So let's go.
That is
go back.
a valid thing to clear up there.
Yep, let's go back a couple of years. There was a bakery.
You're gonna talk about the gay cakes. I get it.
Yes. The bakery.
No, the cakes aren't gay. The cakes are
the problem, right?
I know.
Here's the problem with this. They won their case. They won the case, and they are allowed to not sell cakes to gay people.
So look, I'm not
okay. And what Amazon has done, okay, and this isn't actually what they have not said this, but if you want to look at it the way that all the people that are bitching and moaning about Parler getting booted off, what Amazon has done has said you are equivalent to the gay person that is being denied a cake at this point. I don't want your crap on my service, and I'm a business, so get lost. And I'm sorry, the people that made that law possible and fought for that bakery to be able to say, I'm sorry, you're gay, I'm not going to serve you, are getting exactly what they designed. And they have no right to bitch about that. That is what they wanted. They got it.
I think what are you doing? Come on.
Comic relief.
She came in to steal
I feel
candy
like we're
off my
ganging up
desk.
on Nate here.
You are ganging up on me. My point is Amazon is a much bigger player in this world, and I'm not going to weigh in on where I stand on the bakery thing because, yes, you're right. When it comes down to black and white, ones and zeros, true or false, you're right. It's the same deal.
It is.
I will completely admit that. Same deal. It's small bakery that affects a small community of people refusing service to somebody because of something, a lifestyle they've chosen, is very much the same case as what Amazon is doing right now by kicking Parler off. Does Parler deserve to be kicked off? Probably. Right?
Right. Now, I don't
The
know.
point is, Amazon is
I
such a huge player in this game. There's only a handful of cloud providers.
Okay, so
use a different. Here's the thing, the cake obfuscates it. It's really simple. As someone who is renting resources, here are the terms of service you agreed to. You violated these terms of service multiple times. Were given multiple opportunities to fix it. You chose not to. And by the way, this directly led to assisting a riot and an insurrection, which is a big friggin' deal.
It is a big deal. Again, I'm not arguing that. I'm
right. And look, Amazon, I don't think, from what I have been able to tell, like Amazon doesn't do this every day. This is like this is a big deal for them to boot somebody. They don't normally just like, they don't just boot people off.
And this was strike 20 or 30. This wasn't even strike 3. This has been going on for months.
I guess my only worry, and maybe I'm being extra paranoid, is that the gates are open to make it more common now.
Yeah, but the alternative is what? Anybody can say anything, anywhere, at any time, and there's nothing that anybody can ever do about it. Which means that Parler can sit there and openly talk about insurrection and blowing shit up, etc. And all the crap that they were talking about, and nobody can stop that ever.
They could do that by standing out in front of their house and shouting it. And they're not allowed, like, people can ignore them. They can have the cops called on them for being too loud or something, right?
Yep.
But if they want to sit on their front porch and have a conversation with 110 people about insurrection, they can.
They can.
Try making a threat against the president in a public place, and you'll get an interesting phone call, I bet, or a visit.
Probably, I'm gonna get one after
like
this,
a,
after
like
tonight's
a valid,
show.
like a valid, a valid threat against a political leader. I mean, there are lines you don't cross. But here's the point. Let's take some of the emotion out of it. And again, it really comes down to, it's not your computers you're using, and it's not your infrastructure. You're renting it.
That is the very crux of the problem, though, right? And this wasn't meant to dovetail into our conversation about self-hosting, but it kind of is, right? We're coming into a world where it's becoming more and more difficult, I think, to host your own mail server, to host your own website in your basement or whatever, because your ISPs are getting more and more, I don't want to say hostile toward it, but they're charging more for it, right? It's not a thing that's as affordable as it used to be, because they don't want you to be hosting stuff from your house, because in a lot of cases, that's just a security problem, right? Like a lot of viruses and whatnot are doing that kind of thing, so they have it all locked down so you can't do that. So unless you're buying commercial service, which costs a ton of money, you have to go to one of these providers. You have to pay a web host. And web hosts, believe me, I ran a web host, are getting less and less common because the cloud providers make it so cheap and affordable for you to go put stuff on their hardware under their terms of service, because it's so expensive to do it everywhere else.
Yeah.
So someday, maybe not in my lifetime, but someday, relatively soon, we're going to be in a world where there's only cloud providers. That's the only way you're going to get your stuff onto the internet, and you're going to be stuck in their terms of service, and you're going to have to agree to their terms of service, whether it's because you want to spread hate speech or anti-Semitic crap, which should not probably exist, or because they don't think that, I don't know, that your cake business is worth having, an online presence.
Right. But short of your own home or a public street, it does not exist anywhere in the world where that is not the case already. Go down to the bar. You have terms of service when you walk into that bar. I don't care what you think, you do. If the bar owner wants to throw you out because he doesn't like what you're talking about, nothing you can do about it.
You can go drink by yourself on your porch.
You can go drink by yourself on your porch and have fun talking to your wall about your insurrection plans. Go for it. Right? The if you are not in if you are going into a non-public area or not an area owned by you, you have to abide by whatever the rules are set by the people that own that area. I mean, you walk into Walmart and start yelling at the, this, that, and the next thing, and they'll escort you out. And when you won't leave, they'll call the cops, and the police will come in to enforce that and say, you're coming with us.
But you still have an escape from that.
What's that?
You still have an escape from that.
Which
right?
is what?
Well, you can go shop somewhere else.
And they had the exact same.
Maybe they don't.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. I go to Walmart. I get thrown out because I refuse to wear a mask. I go to
like that ever happens.
Store, right? Yeah, I know. Whatever.
So
I go to the next store and I get thrown out because they refuse to wear a mask. I go to the third store, which is some mom and pop shop that I happen to know the guy.
They don't throw you out because you're not wearing a mask.
You don't throw out.
But you might get COVID, right? But
whatever. So you get COVID and die. But they don't have the stuff that I'm looking for because they're this little shop that does, Walmart has basically taken all the stuff and all the stuff that I'm looking for is elsewhere. But I've made my decision. I've decided to go somewhere where I can spout my insurrectional crap and I'm not thrown out of the store for it. There's nobody in there. They don't have anything to buy, but whatever.
And if we're looking for a metaphor, the polar equivalent is you're imitating Winnie the Pooh and just wearing a shirt and nothing else, and you're trying to shop at Walmart.
Yes.
And then Walmart throws you out, and then you try to go to Target, and then you try to go to it's behavior that's not going to be welcome anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, this is definitely an argument based on a service which I probably agree with you probably should not exist, or at least should have some moderation, because there is a line. There's a line between censorship and just keeping things decent, right?
Polar's own CEO said they had the bare metal, that they didn't need Amazon. They have their own bare metal hardware they can run it on. Okay, go for it, dude.
Yeah, go ahead and do it. Guess they didn't.
That's what it comes down
to. So anyway, we've beaten this for half an hour. Maybe we should move on before we get too heated and don't want to talk to each other anymore.
I get the slippery slope concern that it's going to be a world of censorship, but I really I don't buy that in this case. It was such an extreme situation, and I got to go with Jason's perspective on this. Amazon, this is not the kind of thing they do every day. And when you actually look at the legal documents, they gave them chance after chance after chance after chance. Because in the end, this is Amazon leaving money on the table. Because they want your money for the service.
Right, absolutely.
They don't want to kick people off their service. They want to take their money.
Well, I mean, the one argument that I would make against it is that Amazon and Twitter and Facebook basically destroyed any use of their terms of service over the last 4+ years, because look at the people that have been on the service breaking those terms of service left, right, upside down, and backwards, and they haven't done shit.
Well, yeah,
it took storming of the Capitol for them to go, oh, maybe we should enforce that now.
I think you're going to see some changes and some shaking up.
That's because none of the other stuff that they did put up with was quite to the right level. It was all arguable. It was all, he's not really hurting anybody by saying that thing. When in reality, maybe he was. But
except it was extremely black and white. These were breaking the terms of service. Period. End of story.
Right.
And nothing was done.
So I don't know about you guys, but let me get personal for a second. I've been a conservative my entire life, and I couldn't take it any longer. I didn't vote for Trump last time. I voted third party. I voted for Biden this time, and after last week, I might never vote for a Republican again. Not someone who thinks that anything that happened, as the people who are kind of being like, well, it's the same thing as the BLM marches and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just they're just
not
no,
quite
no.
equatable.
If you at all, if you can look at Trump's speech last week and look at his son's speech and look at Giuliani and look at his reaction during that day, and you can walk away with anything other than disgust, then we're done. Like we're never going to see eye to eye on that.
I think that the last 4 years have left the Republican Party in a complete dumpster fire,
Yeah.
which is
So if this
kind of what
Republic,
you're
yeah,
saying, right?
yeah.
I think there's going to be a rift, even within the party, maybe several rifts for a very long time to come.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, they're gonna have to earn their way back into any sort of respectability.
I think
But
there needs to be I think there needs to be accountability. I mean,
yeah,
they went
we'll
they
see what
went
happens.
overboard trying to get accountability for Black Lives Matter and everything else. I mean, if it's good enough for that, I think we should be holding them to the same, at least the same level, i- if not more, because they actually stormed the Capitol. But you know, start
The
arresting
meme,
them,
yeah, the
everybody,
me-
like the leaders, the whole 9 yards. Get rid of them.
the meme about if Biden wins the election or if Trump wins the election, the left wing will riot, and if Trump wins the election, the right wing guys will just smile and go to work. Yeah, that aged really well.
Yeah, it didn't work out
The
so well,
right,
did
the
it?
right can never, the right can
Now,
never claim any
now hold
any
on,
moral
hold on.
superiority on that
In
ever
in
again.
in the right's defense, that's a very small radical edge of the right that did not smile and go to work.
And
Dude,
yet they're the loudest ones and the ones that are leading the party.
and
Right?
let me tell you,
Your Congress people, the RNC chair people, etc. The people leading the party are not denouncing it. Sorry, I don't care how small that group was. If the leaders are not denouncing it, that's a bigger issue.
and I'll tell you, I've got Facebook friends across the spectrum. You and I've had this talk before.
Hmm.
And a scary number of people that I thought were smarter than this are whataboutism, or they're whatabouting the whole thing, and
No,
they're
I
not
agree.
getting it.
I have seen that in a lot of places
So
from a
it's
lot of
not a small
people.
number, Nate.
There's a small number that actually brought it to violence, is what I'm saying. There's a small number that actually took action. The rest of them might be complaining and bitching on social media, but they still smiled and went to work. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah. So anyway, we've gone long. Surprise. There's one more news article that I wanted to touch on, only
How
because
many listeners have we lost?
I think it's
Yeah.
well, we're actually right where we started at 5 viewers, so that's cool.
No, I mean after they listen to this the recording, how many people have we lost?
So
Can we throw religion in here too, just for
no,
just to
let's
make sure?
maybe
we're good?
we'll
Okay.
cover that on the next show.
Bless your heart.
So
All right.
there's an article. Well, first of all, there's several articles about Parler that we didn't even cite, but they're in the show notes. You can go look them up if you want to. And they were basically just to get the conversation started. We didn't really cover any
We
of
didn't
them.
need them.
We didn't need them. But there's an article here from Reuters. The father of the web, Tim Berners-Lee. I always pronounce his name wrong for some reason. It's so simple. Berners-Lee prepares a
Rhymes with Discord.
prepares a do-over. All right, so
Sir Tim Berners-Lee.
sir, right? Well, it's not in the. I read the title. The
I'm
title
looking,
doesn't
I
say
actually
it. It
clicked through
does
the
say.
article.
It
It's
does
the very
say,
first sentence.
sir.
Tim
But it's
Berners-Lee.
not in the title. I read the title. It's not in the title.
But you didn't read you didn't RTFA.
God, I haven't gotten there.
All right.
You interrupted me before I got there. Anyway. All right, so there was apparently a what was it, Tech Exchange or something?
No, I'm looking at it.
There
I'm
was,
actually reading the article now.
Dang it, where is it? Yeah,
This looks like it's going to go
from
nowhere.
the Reuters Next conference is what it's called. Okay, so apparently he spoke there, or I guess virtually spoke there because of COVID and whatever. And there's a recording which I can't see now because the site has so happily replaced it with advertisements for other articles. However, he's basically saying how the way the internet has panned out really isn't how he pictured it. with all these silos like Facebook and Twitter and Google and whatever, and how they don't really intercommunicate with each other, and how content shared on one platform isn't easily shared to another. I mean, you can, but you can't do it and maintain privacy in any real meaningful way. You have to make it public and share. And identity is not a thing that is easily exchanged throughout the world. Now, obviously, we have SSO vendors. We have things like you can use your Google sign in to sign into all kinds of other things. You can use your Facebook sign in to sign into all kinds of other things. But there's no like one centralized auth or one centralized place for your data. And he's backing this startup that was called, where the hell is it?
Interrupt.
Interrupt. Yeah, but there was a thing it's based on. It's called like
Solid.
Solid. I was going to say it's called Solid, isn't it? So he's backing this project called Solid, and forming. I think he's forming another company called Interrupt, right? INTRUPT, Interrupt. How do you pronounce that one, Mark?
Discord.
Am I pronouncing it wrong?
I don't know.
And the idea would be, and I don't know how much of this is actually in real technology yet because I haven't checked out any of the projects that he's mentioned. But the idea would be a not central, but unified identity system is basically what they're talking about. Maybe that's the first step. Maybe it's the last step. I don't know. Where your identity, and he mentions data, would be something that you can host in what he's calling pods, and they're that personal online data stores, right? I've never really heard pods actually extrapolated to personal online data stores, but I've heard pods used to describe this idea before, where basically your data becomes yours again, right? And your identity becomes yours again, and you can somehow host this in a way that is then shareable on your terms, which I think sounds like a really, really cool idea. I think it has the same problems that most other decentralized things do, in that you need some expertise to run them, or you need to know someone who has expertise to run them, and then you need to be able to protect them, right? Otherwise, it just becomes another place for people to steal your data. So I don't know how they're going to tackle that problem. This article doesn't go into it. This sounds like it's a very beginning conversation, but I thought it was worth talking about on the show tonight. So much so that even after we went off the rails for a while and the show went long, I wanted to make sure it was included. So go check out the article. I think it's a pretty cool idea, and I think it could make a brighter future for the the internet. I hope. Maybe I'm just being optimistic.
Well,
That would be nice.
it is a neat idea, but there've been a lot like this, and then one thing that's always missing from these is the hook for companies to use it.
Yeah.
Why would Facebook want to use this? What you know? Look at your social media platforms. Look at the majority of platforms today.
Mm-hmm.
They're making money by mining and selling your identity, your data.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got that locked up and they can't do that, there's nothing for them to make money on. So why would they? Why?
Yeah. So just as a good example, right now, obviously, with all the years I've been on Google's platform with my Android devices, I use my Google sign-on whenever possible, so I don't have to put in a new username and password for every service that I'm going to, because, it gives me some element of single sign-on. I can't do that on Facebook. Can't do it on Twitter. Can't do it on a number of platforms that have an interest in me having an identity with them and not with some other provider. So you're right. What's the buy-in?
Right.
And I mean, we can always fall back on the old argument. Oh, well, people can just choose to not use Facebook. People can just choose a better way. They won't.
I did, but
Well, okay. You are a minority here. I'm sorry.
yes, I am. But it's possible. But and then the other thing that people point out all the time is like, well, if it's a good enough service, people will pay for it. And I'm sorry, like that's kind of horseshit.
Rarely.
It's really not the case.
It really isn't.
Yeah,
And I think you're
if
gonna
it's
see-
free, even if they're doing terrible things with your data, people will still use it.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see this is gonna start hitting home for like video services soon too. There's too many. We've hit a point where there's too many video services, and some of them are going to have to fold.
Yeah, it's what we asked
Because
for,
people
though.
are not willing to pay every service.
Don't you remember 10 years ago, we were like, damn, I hate paying all this money for this big bundled cable service. I wish I could buy my cable TV channels a la carte.
And
Yes.
now we can.
Now we can, and now everyone's like, I have too many streaming services.
Yeah, but there's
I'm
so
not like that.
expensive.
I'm still. As soon as I dump DirecTV, I'll be paying far less money for.
Oh,
the
yeah,
stuff
absolutely.
I have in years.
The difference
Absolutely.
was that I would, if I had a cable box on top of my TV with a controller that I could flip through the channels, and I had the option of buying specific channels that I wanted with the stupid dumb interface of pushing the button up and down to choose channels.
Yeah.
That's great. But I have that now, sort of, where I can get Peacock and Disney Plus and CBS and Netflix, and every single one of these is a different app.
So
with
what
a
you
different
want,
login,
what you
with a
want is an
different
integrated
box.
guide is really all you need. You need an
What's
that?
integrated guide that goes on top of all of it.
Yes.
I think the Roku does actually a pretty damn good job of that, because if you search for a movie or a TV show, it will tell you on which services you can find it.
Yeah, it doesn't go
It'll
through
let you jump
all of
right
them,
to it.
though. It goes through a lot of them, but not all of them. Like, if you have that one Edge service that's not covered by Roku, it'll never tell you there's content there. Like Plex. It doesn't query my Plex server. I wish it did. That'd be really nice. To be like,
Well,
oh, you've
you
got a
know-
local copy right here. Go watch it.
Yeah, that's a little out of scope, probably, dude. But the point is, I like the Roku so much that after buying one, I quickly bought two more, so it's on every TV in my house.
I have a Roku on every TV in the house. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
That
torn
wasn't that-
between getting a Roku or getting an Apple TV, to be honest.
Get the Roku.
The Roku was so inexpensive but so good that it was a no-brainer for me. And
That could just
I-
be me talking, but buy the Roku. I've
Yeah.
been using
And you
Rokus
can
for
run- you can run the
probably
Apple
10 years.
TV
They're
app.
awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
I think I got a Roku at one point. I bought a Roku.
And the current Roku remote is so satisfying. Like, it
Don't
just
get used to
feels
that.
so
The next
good.
time you buy a Roku, it'll be a whole different remote. Well, it'll be
Well,
just similar enough, but different remote. that
but
you
can
won't remember where the
also-
buttons are.
I can use my phone as the remote.
Yeah, but I find that
And
to be a
touch.
pain in the ass because there's no tactile feedback.
I bought a Roku like 2 years ago, and I don't remember what the problem was. but
Well,
it
I have an
was
iPhone, so
worst
it's a
experience.
quality experience.
I ended up returning it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't remember. I was trying to do something specific, and the Roku ended up not being able to do it, and I was like, this is totally pointless.
That's a shame.
That
I
is a
need-
shame.
Need yet another device in the house to play Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is that it's disconnected from all of the other devices. It's like a device all in itself. But,
Well-
I mean, if it doesn't fit your lifestyle, it doesn't fit your lifestyle. But
Yeah,
to me,
it's
it's been
fine.
perfect. It's been a perfect replacement for the old cable box.
Yeah. So
But you're
now I
right, it
just-
does not have an integrated guide. So somebody who's listening that has some talent at programming, go write an integrated guide for something that'll query all of the various channels, and then Jason will pay you for it. Or maybe he won't.
Yeah, that's a thankless
We
job.
already talked
because
about it. He's not going to pay.
companies-
He's not
companies,
gonna-
companies change their APIs specifically to stop you from doing that. They just keep changing it.
That is ridiculous.
So,
Oh man, is this the longest Iron Sysadmin we've ever done?
I don't know, maybe. But we should probably end it now. We do have a lot more news to go over, but none of it's really cool, except for
Yeah,
this
I'm
one about
tired of
this guy who made his own fiber provider, which is kind of cool.
it'll be in the
It'll be in the notes. This guy, basically his cable
We're just gonna
company.
talk about it.
I'm just
anyway.
gonna summarize. His cable company wouldn't build out to where he is, and they wanted him to pay a ridiculous amount of money to build their own network out to him. So he said, "Screw you," and paid 3 times as much and built his own fiber network.
and now he charges for it.
Now he
and
charges
it's
for it. He's
like
his
that.
own little ISP. I thought it was cool.
It's the American dream writ large.
No,
and he can
really,
have
it
the
is
terms-
that like
and
whoever
he can have
shared
it-
this
he
with
can
me.
make whatever.
Whoever
Yep,
shared
he
this
can
with me,
have his
I'm
own
like,
terms of service.
it's only in America
Right.
you find this.
And so that's where you want to host, because he has super loose terms of service. I'll bet.
Does he? I don't know. Maybe not.
Maybe
maybe
he
he's
does.
worse-
Maybe he can negotiate.
maybe he's
super
worse than
terms-
Amazon.
super loose terms.
Keep in mind,
Maybe,
his
but
upstream-
maybe he's better.
his upstreams could pressure him to dump you. Because,
Exactly. Exactly.
They could, I guess.
So anyway, folks, I think we've gone on for long enough tonight,
You
even though
think?
we didn't get
Just a
all
little?
the stuff. We've gone more than long enough, I think, at this point. So what's the usual close? Here we go. It's been a month. I don't remember it all. So if you want to watch us live, you can do that roughly the second and fourth Thursday of every month on Twitch or YouTube at this point. Twitch.tv/Iron Sysadmin Podcast or YouTube.com/Iron Sysadmin Podcast. You can join our Matrix community, or maybe it'll be a Discord community in the future. I don't know. At the moment, it's still Matrix. There's a link in the show notes for that. I'm not going to read it because it's too hard to choke down. There's a plus sign in it and a colon. It's really a pain in the ass. There's also a link on IronSystemIn.com to get you there. Of course, you can find us on the social networks, Facebook and Twitter.
Live Journal.
We used to
MySpace.
be on Google Plus, but it's gone now. It's a shame.
No one's on Google Plus now.
Gone
And,
for-
and now you can find us on Librem One, but there's not a link for that in the notes because I don't know if anyone's ever actually.
I love that DP stuck with us the entire
I
time.
know he's still here. That's awesome.
You can
DP,
find
we
Nate on
playing
Parler.
what are we playing poker again, man? Oh, I missed that. Anyway,
And of course, don't forget you can support the show on Patreon if you feel like you want to do that, or you can go buy shirts or whatever on Teespring. That's another way to help us out. So links for those are in the notes as well. And I think I'm done talking for tonight. You guys want to say goodnight? Because I'm done.
Good night.
Say
good night, everybody. And Nate, when he said Discord the last time, actually said it properly. so I'm
Discord.
proud of him.
Discord. All right. Good night, everybody.
Button.